All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Village of Cottage Grove, the Village Board of Trustees meeting on Monday, February 21st. It is 6:30 p.m. on my watch. Due to the ongoing pandemic, we are holding this meeting via Zoom. The link is at the top of the agenda, or for those that choose to, there is an audio or phone call-in number and associated meeting ID as well at the top of the agenda. With that, we'll confirm we have a quorum. So Lisa, please.
Allen,
Present.
Murphy,
Present.
Peterson,
Double mute. Sorry, here.
Ratcliffe,
Here.
Valencia,
Present.
Vandervelde,
Present.
and Williams.
Present. We do have a quorum. The agenda was properly posted, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please find a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, item 4, we have public appearances, public's opportunity to speak. So we ask that those who would like to speak or comment to please provide your name, your address, your municipality, in order to capture that for the public record, and to hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes, just in case we have a number of people who would like to comment. Please also remember that this is a public meeting and it is being recorded. Also, please be respectful for those around us and avoid disruption for the benefit of all those in attendance. We encourage certainly comments at this particular item and forum in this agenda. And we would also encourage those that have questions to please follow up with village staff or the presenter so that they can actually be properly addressed. It does appear that we have a number of people who would like to speak. So in order to kind of flow, kind of move along with this and allow everybody to get their comments heard, there is a wish to comment or wish to speak form that the village does have. And we've had a number of people who have completed that form. So I'll start with those. Then we'll move to those that are on the Zoom. There's a little button that's in the middle on the bottom menu that says reactions. Just raise your hand and I will call through those that have raised their hand. And then anybody on the phone, at the end of all that, I'll just ask if anybody is on the phone to please speak at that point. So with that, I'll move right to the forms that were completed. First one I have in here is Robert Proctor. Robert, are you on?
Yep.
Okay, please.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm Robert Proctor. I'm an attorney representing Houston Holdings, who are looking to develop the land directly to the west of the Amazon project and located within the tax incremental district. The Houstons have been working with the staff, village staff, and there are a number of issues that we would really like to see resolved before the Amazon project is approved. The most important one is the access to what some people refer to as the beacon property, is that right now the Amazon property is kind of located in the middle of the TID, and the way it is currently set up, it may pose a barrier to the development of the other properties within the TID. And that would lead to possibly not being able to develop well over 100 acres of land that could be tax base for the village. What we're kind of talking about is right now the city's looking at hitting a double by having a very good user in Amazon come in, and we're looking to turn that into a triple over home run by making sure that the city keeps in mind, or excuse me, the village, where the roads and the utilities are going to go to make sure that the other properties located within the TID can be developed. There have been, the Houston's engineer, Mike Hawkins, have put forward a plan that can show areas where the roads could go in the future. There's been a lot of differing opinions on what is feasible, and I think he's put together a very reasonable approach. And this can be a win-win for the community, for the village, as it develops the TID. Nobody is looking on the Houston side to interfere with Amazon being able to develop that area, just looking at making sure that the services are there to allow the other properties to also develop. At the Plan Commission, the motion to recommend approval to the board came with a provision asking that there would be a plan put in place for the future roads serving the other properties. Not a plan that would lock in exactly where they go, but would show a strategic planning to look at them and how they would fit and work with the Amazon project. We strongly encourage that the board look to have that plan completed prior to locking in the Amazon approval. And the importance of this now is that there will be a lot of future problems if we don't kind of answer and plan for the development of the entire district right now as to how utilities are going to work. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Next, again, wish to speak, I believe. Yes, Jeff I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm going to butcher it.
It's Okazaki.
Okazaki.
Yep.
I apologize.
No problem. Yeah, so village staff had mentioned that this has been following a standard approval process, but we want to emphasize really that no part of this project should be thought of as standard. You know, this is an international trillion-dollar company building a 3.4 million square foot truck stop that will be one of their largest facilities in the nation, and by their own estimates will bring in nearly 400,000 trucks per year. If we look at other Amazon projects around the country, the mayor of Robbinsville, New Jersey had to threaten Amazon with a lawsuit when traffic at their warehouse was 5 times what Amazon claimed it would be. And at the Amazon warehouse in Dallas, semi-trucks can wait in line outside the facility for more than 12 hours. A number of members of the village board also have homes that fall into what physicians have called diesel death zones, which means that you and your children will be breathing fumes from those 400,000 trucks. And while they've claimed otherwise, even more homes in the village would be at risk when Amazon says it can't control whether or not third-party drivers take N as the most effective route at night. The pollution, the traffic all create significant problems that we think have not been fully examined. The traffic impact study, especially for this project, was cited by the county as not addressing Amazon's peak times during the holiday or the long-term traffic impact. And so the village should feel morally obligated really to take the time to protect itself and its residents while they have leverage and before Amazon is established. While there's no doubt that the task base for this facility is appealing, it's not a zero-sum game. You know, other development would be able to bring in significant tax revenue without the same downsides, and with the TIF district meaning that no money comes to the village for another 8 to 16 years, it gives more than enough time for better options to be built within the same space. So saying no, or at least saying wait to Amazon, as the last person kind of just mentioned too, does not mean no development. It just means that the appropriate amount of time is taken to at least review things like a full traffic study, the actual developer's agreement, and to ensure that local concerns are addressed before contracts are written, to establish baseline measurements for sound and other nuisances, to ensure that the right enforcement mechanisms are in place, and to get guarantees that you will get a good partner, or at least extra revenue for the village if you get a bad partner. So I certainly appreciate the chance to speak on the issue, and I especially appreciate from you, Mr. Williams, the calm and kind of respectful way that you've addressed and allowed us to voice all of our concerns. I do hope that the village will do more than listen and take a pause to ensure the necessary safeguards are in place. And again, it's Jeff Okazaki, 481 Alvin Road in the town of Sun Prairie.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Next, we have Stefan at 409 Teeny Court. Does
Yes.
wish to speak.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Stefan Chubano, and I live at 409 Diana Court in Cottage Grove. I am a professional engineer licensed in the state of Wisconsin. After reviewing most of the documents, I have quite a few questions, but I would resume to ask in only 2. The stormwater management design submitted by Pineapple Engineering Group should show with mathematical computations and computer modeling software simulations how the management of the runoff generated by this property will be done in such manner that the surrounding properties will not be negatively impacted by it. Such document must be signed and stamped by a licensed professional engineer. Upon reviewing the document, I was only able to find one name of Michael Gardner, followed by the EIT abbreviation, which stands for Engineer in Training. According to the National Society of Professional Engineers, only professional engineers can sign and seal engineering drawings or serve as fully qualified expert witnesses. Without the signature of a PE, the document presents no professional guarantee, and that may put the village at risk of litigation if flooding-related problems arise in the future. Question number 2, the height of the building was granted a variance. Currently, maximum in this area is 45 feet allowed. This building is going to be 103 feet tall. By approving this development, are we putting the village at risk of litigation in case of a fire and people escaping to the roof if the fire department cannot save them because we are lacking the ladder truck that can reach 103 feet and facilitate such rescues? In conclusion, I'm asking for a deferment of 30 days so the community can further evaluate this application. Thank you.
Thanks, Stefan. Next, we have Jason Fields. Jason, are you on?
I am. Thank you, Village President. Good to see all of you, some familiar faces. I think many of you heard this before. I'm Jason Fields. I'm the CEO and President of the Madison Region Economic Partnership. We're the economic development organization for the South Central Wisconsin 8-county region, which encompasses Dane and 7 other counties. Our organization recently hosted a virtual office hours with the developer on this project to facilitate discussions such as the ones we've had the prior 2 or 3 weeks to address questions about the facility, the design plans, and want to thank all of you who attended and continue to really have, I think, what I call intellectual conversations about this. I'm obviously familiar with the project being discussed and believe that, you know, our region will benefit from this development. It will bring economic activity to the site, offering a wide-ranging supply chain and subcontracting opportunities for regions, businesses that exist now. And ultimately, it will bring well-paying jobs at a variety of different skill levels. An important part of our role as the region's economic development organization is to pull together and interpret such data on projects like these. Our organization provided the project impact reporting to village staff. We also referenced it in the developed FAQs on their website. As with all projections, these are estimates based on historical data and patterns. There are no guarantees, but the best modeling we have access to tells us that 1,000 to 1,500 jobs will induce additional jobs and millions in earnings in the Cottage Grove and Sun Prairie area. I'm excited to be a part of this Madison region community, and I look forward to our continued economic growth. And again, it's good to see many new faces and familiar faces. And thank you again for allowing me to speak.
All right, thanks, Jason. Next, we have Sean Coates. Sean, are you on?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, my name is Sean Coates. I'm with the North Central States Regional Council of Carpenters, and I work with millwrights in the Wisconsin area. Millwrights work on factory machinery, conveyor systems, things like that. So I'll set the table a little bit from a construction standpoint. Typically, you're going to have a general contractor that's building the building, and then your subcontractors to assist with that. And in the past, Amazon, it's usually local contractors and a good amount of local people doing that. Now, when it gets to the equipment that goes in, the conveyors and things like that, the story changes a little bit. Amazon will hire a manufacturer, and then that manufacturer will hire the contractor. And I'll tell you how it kind of played out in Oak Creek back in March of 2020. Their building was built, and B&B Conveyor was hired by Intelligrated, the conveyor manufacturer. B&B Conveyor is out of Hernando, Florida, mostly hiring workers out of Texas and other southern states, about 80 to 100 workers. And that date, March of 2020, probably rings a bell with a lot of people. And there were people working for this company that had pretty considerable low wages, and they were sometimes staying 5, 6 people to a motel room. I'm sure Cottage Grove does not want something like that for the construction process. And this is like 10 to 14 million dollars in payroll, and they're not registered in the state of Wisconsin. We can only assume those tax dollars went right out the window. So we do have contractors that, like Doral Corporation, they're from Wisconsin. They've done a number of these sites. They hire locally. This is great opportunities as more young folks are looking to get into the trades. Great entry-level jobs for them, and these folks are trained to do this type of work, and it's really good opportunities. So all in all, we're definitely in support of this project as far as the North Central States Regional Council of Carpenters, but it has to be done right and responsibly with the tax dollars staying here and the workers from here. So just wanted to offer that up for consideration as well. And thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Sean. Next, we have Anthony Anatisi. Anthony, look like you did not wish to speak. I just want to confirm that's the case. All right. Again, at 5501 Manufacturer Drive, indicated opportunities for Cottage Grove jobs and careers for that one. Next on the wish to speak form, Michelle Wee. Michelle, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Please go.
Okay. This is Michelle Way at 100 Coyle Parkway in the Village. And for those of you who do not know me, I'm a resident here in the Village as well as a business owner where I rent property, a 5,000 square foot warehouse here in the Village. So I see both sides of things from a resident standpoint and from a business standpoint, and that's where I come to you now. Another important topic or part of this, or where I come to you as, is I am deeply vetted in Amazon as a company for my business. 25% of our profits come directly from Amazon. So I've worked with them quite a bit for 4 years, and I come to you to ask you to postpone the approval until you can fully vet Amazon as a company. In my experience, again, it's very important in my business. Amazon does what Amazon wants to do. So I listened to the Wednesday meeting in its entirety. I got a very strong feeling that they're fox in sheep's clothing because I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen to many other business owners. Then additionally, I want to ask the board members, have you sought out other experiences of other jurisdictions that have had large Amazon facilities? So we've talked about Oak Creek. Who else have you talked to as far as what their experiences have been having a large facility and working directly with Amazon? I as a Village resident and a Village business resident, this can fall on the backs of us if something goes awry, not only next year or 20 or 30 years from now, because, I am committed to this community. So I highly recommend that you delay the approval so we can get more information and more experience from other municipalities who have worked with Amazon, because they are one of the biggest businesses in the world for a reason. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing from all of you.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Next, I have Thomas Hickley. Did not, at least on the form, did not wish to speak. Thomas, are you on, or have you changed your mind? Thomas provided a written statement to the village board, is with the Regional Council of Carpenters in that capacity. So move then to that's at least the wish to speak forms that I had. So now I see a few folks that have raised their hand, and we'll start with RG Houston Company. Is that Dale?
My name is Tom Beacon.
Oh, Tom. Yes, please.
I'd like to express my concerns about Project Silver Eagle. My family and I own the 45 acres west of the site. Back in 2010, I worked with the landowners to bring all the current TID 10 land into the village. As part owner of several different entities, we annexed these lands into the village in 2010 as rural holdings and commercial properties. We signed the pre-annexation agreement with the understanding that the village would provide access and utilities to properties per village ordinances. It has been represented at previous meetings that I did not provide for future access to the land that my family still owns when my other entity and partners agreed to sell to Grey Wolf. My family felt confident that the terms of the pre-annexation agreement would provide the access and utilities to develop the remaining 45 acres that my family owns. I was made aware of this development in early January 2022. It was at that time I found out that the Amazon proposal was not providing access and utilities to all the properties according to the pre-annexation agreement. I would like to go on record respectfully requesting that the access and utilities be provided to my family property per the annexation agreement. I support Project Silver Eagle, but would like to suggest that a condition of approval be that the future developers agreement include access and utilities for my 45-acre parcel of land. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue the access and utility discussions with the village staff and the Project Silver Eagle team.
All right, thank you, Tom. Next, we have Jane Gulman. Did I get your name right, Jane?
Yes, Jane Gallman. I live at 2749 County Road T in the town of Sun Prairie for the last more than 30 years. And I am strongly opposed to the Amazon warehouse proposal on the northernmost edge of the village of Cottage Grove due to the increased traffic and to the air, water, noise, and light pollution that would be generated by the building itself and also by the nonstop semi-trucks accessing the site by the roundabouts on Highway N and TT. And I strongly oppose the 100 acres of Wisconsin farmland equal to 76 football fields being developed into a 100-foot tall warehouse as big as 2 Camp Randall stadiums side by side and a huge paved parking lot to hold 1,700 cars and over 380 semis. The stormwater runoff from the hard surfaces of a development this size would be immense. I am also very strongly opposed to the huge negative environmental impact that the project would have on McCarthy Youth and Conservation County Park, which is right across Highway N from the proposed site. The diesel fume pollution from over 2,500 semi-trucks trips per day, along with the noise pollution and vibration of semi-trucks idling at the site, would negatively impact the birds and other wildlife that live in the park and also lead to a loss of human enjoyment of the serenity of the park. And I also want to say I agree with everything that Jeff Okazaki said, and also Michelle Ruda Wahi about Amazon being a fox in sheep's clothing, and also with Stephen Chobanu about the runoff document and the variance for the height of the building changed from 45 feet to 103 feet.
Thank you, Jane. Next, we have Mike Calkins. Mike, are you on?
I just want to piggyback on some comments that Mr. Proctor made and Tom Beacon made. I've worked on looking at some different alternatives since the Plan Commission meeting and have provided staff with some very general thoughts on access and, you know, the pre-annexation agreement being able to provide adequate access per ordinance. Concerns me a little if we're just looking from the north, unless the coming through the Stoffager property, that would provide one form of access, but having a second access point would be important to developing the property and also meeting the ordinance just due to the configuration of the parcel. There'd probably be a variance required for the cul-de-sac length or the length of dead-end street. So, you know, whatever staff looks at or whatever they feel is a viable connection to meet the ordinances, I just want to reiterate I think there's more than one that's going to be needed to make sure it meets ordinance. So I can get into the details with staff about different plans, but just wanted to relay that opportunity to continue speaking about that, whether that's after approval tonight and prior to development agreement, but just want to keep that dialogue open to make sure that the Houston holdings and the Beacon interest are protected. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Next, Katie's iPhone. Katie, you out there? All right. Make sure, Katie, if you double mute, sometimes that happens too. All right, with that, then we'll go to Jill Dern. Jill?
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Jill Durr. I live at 4842 Bailey Settlement Road. It's in the subdivision directly behind the proposed construction. And I think I speak for a lot of my neighbors also. We have a great deal of interest in the project, although we're town of Sun Prairie residents, so we don't have the ability to vote for you as our leaders. So we hope that you at least take the opportunity to listen to our concerns. We were not made aware of this project until Trammell Crow came to us on February 9th and offered 2 one-hour sessions. That was the first notification, and I know by ordinance you're following what you need to do, but we have direct impact. The enormity of the project is mind-boggling from the use and enjoyment of my property. I have 17 acres here, and I will be able to hear this. From everything I'm learning, there'll be, as Jeff called it, I'll be in a death zone. And the traffic impact, I looked at and listened to the traffic study at the last planning meeting, and it doesn't even really address the traffic of coming in and out of our subdivision. The numbers weren't there. It primarily focused on the traffic on Highway N. And once things get backed up on Highway N, they will use the east-west Highway TT. there will be a traffic impact. And I don't think that our roads are built for this amount of traffic. If you've ever watched a semi try to go through the current roundabout system, I'm not sure how you can even assume that two will be able to do that. So I think I ask that you pause so that we can understand the environmental impact, the traffic impact, the economic impact, and the safety issues of what was spoke to about, the village not even having a ladder truck large enough to help. And the TID money, again, isn't going to be available to you as a village for some time. So I ask that you pause, that we get a chance to understand and ask questions. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Jill. Katie's iPhone. Katie,
Hi, I am
There we
out here.
go.
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can, please.
So my name is Katie Schwab. I own the building at 213 West Cottage Grove Road. I'm also a village resident at 2638 Coffeetown Road. I want to go on record for opposing this. I think it's in 2 months. This is such a huge thing that I personally think is going to drastically change and permanently change the look, the feel, everything of Cottage Grove, to me, for the worse. I think somebody said at the last meeting they're going to turn it into like a factory town. And, we've always prided ourselves on being, like a nice suburb of Madison. And I think that's going to take the feel away. And I just think that I listened to the whole meeting last week, and there was only one person that supported it. And that was, I believe, a Houston landowner that connected it. And I think if you guys really listened to all of the residents of Cottage Grove, nobody wants this. And I think it should be your due diligence where you get the input of the village residents who voted you in hopes that you are going to support like what we want as a vision of Cottage Grove. And I don't think having a huge factory with all of this traffic is what we want as a community. So my vote is no. I would say either postpone it or just say no. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Katie. All right, those are all the hands raised that I can see. Oh, and as soon as I said that, someone raised their hand. Matt Dunning. Matt, are you?
Yes, I'm on. Sorry, I just wanted to try to come in last here. And again, request before I even get started for a 30-day deferment in this process until we can really have a chance to look at this and get our questions answered. We've heard from multiple people tonight. Some of the paperwork doesn't even have the right signatures on it. I think it warrants a good hard look, but I also want to circle back to the traffic. I'm out on right off of N, and I've heard from people say, well, nobody's going to use N because it's going to have to slow them down, and it's going to just be slower and not as efficient. But I think the thing worth noting here is if you actually go on a GPS, Google Maps, drop a pin anywhere right before the county highway and exit on Highway 90, and drop a pin where the site is going to go, it tells you to go on N. It actually says that going down N or taking 94 around, as far as a time standpoint goes, they're the same. However, the one key difference that is being overlooked is the distance. It is 5 miles shorter. And I think all of you are very much aware of how gas prices are going up right now. And if you think for 1 minute that the company, this whole thing is about transporting goods and getting them out and not have it quickly and not having them affect their bottom line, that they're not going to use the shortest route possible when you're talking about 1.1 million trips a year, 5 miles starts to add up real fast. There are no assurances this is going to happen. The traffic study that we were shown at the planning meeting, they stopped at Gaston Road. I also know that if you look at BB and N, that is a very congested area at the times that they're proposing. Tractor trailer trucks start going through there. 20% of the staff that they're projecting we're going to get from that area. How are you going to keep those kids safe? I know that you don't even have crossing guards that can run going from across Taylor. from one side of Taylor to the other after school. And that's a staffed position by the village, and you don't have anybody out there. I've heard from the parents that have kids going there that they got to make sure that they can cross with the kids because there's no guard. I'd also like to point out you're projecting 1,000 to 1,500 jobs. Governor Evers just last week, we're at an all-time low in the state, 2.5% unemployment rate. Where are these 1,500 employees going to come from? You know, these are low numbers. Again, I've also heard people say the scope of this project. Well, this was always zoned for light industrial. I fully agree. I don't think anybody here has any qualms with that. I don't think anybody here thought that the scope of the project that's being proposed was ever considered when you told us 13 years ago this is going to be light industrial. I think I'm out of time. Matt Dunning, 303 Forreston Drive, Cottage Grove, Wisconsin. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Matt. Anybody on the phone? Okay, just confirming again, anybody on the phone? I don't see anyone else who has their hand raised, so oops.
Hi, sorry. My name's
Amanda.
I'm trying to figure out the hand icon and it's not working well for me.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm at
Please.
Bonnie Road in Cottage Grove. I spoke at the last meeting. I just wanted to make my presence known that I'm attending this meeting as well. I do strongly oppose the placement of Amazon in this position. I understand that this is going to be, developed for industrial commercial use at some point in time. I'm not against that. I share a lot of agreements with everybody's concerns, being environmental, livability, property values and assessments, safety. A lot of my concerns come as being a former employee of an Amazon subsidiary. I think Amazon is a terrible employer. They absolutely are a fox in, sheep's clothing. I've spoken previously about their employee turnover rate, which is about 2 to 3% per week, about 150% a year. They're estimating that they need about 1,000 to 1,500 employees for this facility. Amazon has a strong history of bringing in temporary contractors, and I can guarantee you they will be doing this for the situation because the turnover will be so high.
Did we lose you?
Anna, you accidentally muted.
Oh, there. Am I back? Sorry.
You are back. There you go. Please.
I'm getting I'm not sure how to work this on my computer. It's doing a little different on my phone. I'm not sure where I got cut out though, but I do think Amazon has some very strong anti-employee policies where they tend to be very pro-customer. I think they are very strictly against their employees. There was a lot of articles I looked at today. One that I recently read was from Better Balance, the national nonprofit legal service and advocacy organization. They talk about the no-fault policy that I talked about last time. It has to do with infractions and attendance points, and it strongly contributes to Amazon's employee turnover. A Better Balance does state that the attendance points policy raises serious concerns under existing federal laws, including but not limited to Family and Medical Leave Act, so the FMLA, American with Disabilities Act, ADA, state and local laws related to job protected sick leave, family and medical leave, disability accommodations, and pregnancy accommodations. I strongly don't see how we are, a single family kind of community. We tend to try to promote better jobs for families, and this company is not going to do that for a community. They're just putting our community at risk for turnover. So I don't think it's going to support us at all. So I guess that's my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. We have, looks like Kimberly has her hand raised.
Yes, hello. My name is Kimberly Tucker, and I reside at 4841 Bailey Settlement Road. I am in the town of Sun Prairie, so like Jill said before, I don't have a say or whatever as far as electing you to represent us or my concerns or my family's concerns. The Tuckers have owned this house since 1988. We own 20 acres out here, and we are at the bottom of a cul-de-sac, and so I have some pretty high concerns about how things are going to come off from Amazon as far as The runoff water, we already have issues with that just over the last 25 years of putting in the subdivision that backs up to where Amazon is going to be. So I want to put it on record that I strongly oppose this. I am not against having businesses go in there, but I am strongly opposed to having Amazon put this monstrosity of a building right in our backyards, in our neighborhoods. So, you know, I don't think that they care about the impact that they're going to have on the environment or our property values. You know, we have to live here. This is my family's home. These are our neighbors. We live here. Every day we deal with traffic. Every day we deal with neighbors. Every day we deal with businesses. We support local businesses. We have to endure the traffic. They don't care about our roads. They don't care about our neighbors. They don't care about our creeks or the runoff, the wildlife. And I can strongly say that they don't care about our local businesses either. They don't care what we want, and they will take whatever they want once they get in. So I just want to put it on record that I strongly disagree with this. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
All right, thanks, Kimberly. We have, all right, looks like no more raised hands. So with that, then we'll move on to discuss and consider our meeting minutes from our regular board meeting from February 7th. Any questions, comments from board members?
A motion to approve the minutes as they were presented for our February 7th village board meeting.
All right, thank you, Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Whoops. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, we move on to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. First up is the Plan Commission, and we'll start with Matt. We've got a couple of discuss and considers here, but we'll start with Matt, who's going to provide a little bit of overview context for the.
Thanks, John. I'm just going to share my screen. Before we dig into the zoning and development proposal that's in front of us tonight, I thought it would be helpful to review the past 13 years of strategic and intentional village planning efforts that we've gone through to bring large-scale economic development north of the interstate to the village of Cottage Grove. Between 2009 and 2010, I-94 was expanded to include additional lanes and the 3 roundabouts that are there today, which were constructed and provided the village with a state-of-the-art interchange. It was at this time that village leaders decided to take advantage of the new infrastructure and begin planning efforts for significant industrial and commercial development north of I-94. In 2009, the village came up with its first land use plan for areas north of the interstate. In purple, the majority of the area you can see they're planned as planned mixed use, which is a blend of planned industrial that includes warehousing and distribution, planned office, business, and multifamily uses. The village's 2009 efforts drew interest from private landowners north of I-94, and those owners petitioned the village to annex their property into the village from the town of Sun Prairie in 2010. This was a 220-acre annexation, and as I move through these slides, please note the owners' names on the land and how these names change over time. It's important to remember that each landowner and developer that they may work with, they have their own specific and potentially different development plans and concepts to do, and they do that with the village, but they present what they would like to develop. But any such plan has to be consistent with the village's land use plan, and that's what the village is evaluating during the approval process. Between 2010 and 2013, the village and town of Sun Prairie engaged in boundary agreement discussions. While no agreement was arrived at, the village viewed these talks as beneficial because each party was able to share their long-term development plans. In between 2011 and 2012, the village added land into our urban service area and also amended TIF district number 5. Urban service area is an approval process needed for the village to extend sanitary sewer services to a development. The process generally revolves around stormwater management and water quality. The Capital Area Regional Planning Commission reviews and recommends approval, with Wisconsin DNR having the final say. The village also amended our TIF district number 5, which is also commonly referred to as the Commerce Park. That's where Summit and Johnson Health Tech are located. This was done to help promote development of the 11-acre Houston site down here, west of the Park and Ride. To date, there has been an approved plan unit development for a hotel, but at this time that hasn't moved forward with actual development. In 2018, the village, in collaboration with Dane County, Sun Prairie School District, and Madison College, established the 220-acre TIF district number 10. The district was established with goals of creating significant growth in tax base as well as job creation. With the village's Commerce Park nearly fully developed, TID 10 is the village's only remaining opportunity for large-scale economic development. It's worth noting at this time as well that school district boundaries are not set by the village. All land north of I-94 has always been in the Sun Prairie School District. This is a good time to also clear up some myths that are out there regarding TIF districts. All properties within TIF districts must pay their full property tax bills. When a TIF district is established, the property tax revenue currently being generated by the existing property continues to go to each taxing jurisdiction. As development occurs, the village gets to keep 100% of all new tax revenue. The village then utilizes this new revenue to improve infrastructure, attract development, and spend the funds on any approved projects in the TID's project plan. Following closure of the district, any remaining money is split proportionally with the village, the school district, the county, and the tech school. And then the theory is each entity is now left with presumably a much higher tax base than they previously had, but for the tax increment district. In 2019, Gray Wolf Partners, also known as Cottage Grove Business Development, purchased about 60 acres from the Dushak family and petitioned the village for annexation into the village from the town of Sun Prairie. Following annexation, the village amended TIF district number 10 to include the newly annexed Gray Wolf land, expanding the TIF district to its now current approximate 280 acres. Also during this time, the village went through a comp plan update process. The newly amended comp plan removed land uses that would have allowed for large-scale retail and multifamily residential uses. The large-scale retail would have included uses such as, potential users such as a super Walmart or super Target. So those were removed at that time, and it was changed to just planned office and industrial. The majority of the TID remained as an area that would, which includes warehouse and distribution, which has always been in the village's plans for this area. In 2020, Gray Wolf added to their acreage in the district by purchasing about 60 acres from Mr. Beacon. The village then went through another urban service area amendment process with the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission and DNR. The approvals grant the village authority to extend sanitary sewer service to develop the highlighted area. All of the aforementioned steps and strategies have led the village to the opportunity in front of us tonight. In December of 21, Trammell Crow Company submitted an application for planned unit development zoning to develop a warehouse and distribution facility per the village's planned industrial and office land use plans. And as you can see on this slide, the change in land ownership as well. A couple other items to clear up. The village often hears citizens wonder why they are quote unquote, just hearing about a particular project now, or, they haven't heard about it as long as they would have liked to. This happens for a couple of reasons. The first is the village should not and cannot air or make public private landowners or developers due diligence. The village does not make a project public until the developer formally applies for a project or until a developer decides to bring a concept forward to the public for comment. This is a standard best practice for most cities and villages across the country, if not all. The village also has ordinances that require direct notification about certain approval processes to other properties within 400 feet of the proposed project. While we certainly understand there are often people beyond that distance that would like to be notified, this village requirement is double the distance that most municipalities have for notice. It's also a good time for the village to put a plug in for our notification system on our website. Anyone can reach out to our village clerk and she can help you get signed up to receive text or email notifications of any village agenda that you would like to see. And then a couple more items and I'll wrap up here. Regarding pace of development approval, the plan unit development approval process that we're going through is set forth in village ordinances. And within this zoning, quote unquote, variances are allowed. So those are applied for and negotiated with the plan commission and board in conjunction with the developer. And this timeframe and process is a standard one for village approval, as well as a standard and normal timeframe for municipal approvals around Dane County. In summary, all the previous slides and approvals that I shared with you tonight, those have included a process that involved over 30 public meetings that have led us to the current step in the development process tonight. And then John, lastly, before I hand it back to you and maybe take some questions from the board if anyone has them, is I want to cover property taxes a little bit and the economics of what's in front of us. As mentioned earlier, the properties in the TIF district do pay property taxes. If approved, Amazon would far and away be the biggest village property taxpayer that we have. While the project is part of the TIF district, the village would receive 100% of new tax revenue from this project. This would total about 4.6 million annually. To put that number in perspective, the entire village tax levy is 4.7 million. Following closure of the district, each taxing jurisdiction would get their share of the tax bill. For the village, that would be about 1.4 million. To put that number into perspective, the entire village police department budget is 1.8 million. Yes, the school district tax revenue would go to the Sun Prairie School District, but that is the case for any land north of I-94, and that's always been the case. As I mentioned, the village doesn't control school district boundaries. It's safe to say that Project Silver Eagle will drive interest in village development far outside of TIF District number 10, which certainly will benefit all village residents and other, and Monona Grove School District property taxpayers. John, I'm happy to take some questions.
All right. Any questions for Matt from board members?
Matt, this is Sarah. Can you just clarify, you said 4.6 million annually in tax revenue. Is that before the TIF closes?
That's correct. That's while the TIF is open.
Okay, thank you.
And Matt, just for clarity again, through this entire process, people within 400 feet have been notified about zoning changes, all of that stuff, correct?
Zoning changes, yes.
Just to add on to that, Troy, this is the zoning change. It was annexed in as rural holding, and that's what it is today until any final approval is made. So the planned unit development is the new zoning category if it is approved.
Thanks, Aaron. Any other questions for Matt? Otherwise, we'll switch gears here and move to TC. Trammell Crow.
Thank you, John, and everyone here tonight. I'm going to quickly run through a presentation and then before jumping into that, introduce my team here tonight. So my name is Morgan Bear-Blaska. I work with Trammell Crow Company, the developer behind this project. Here with me tonight, also from Trammell Crow, is Grady Hamilton, who leads our Midwest business unit. Adam Arts from Pinnacle Engineering is here as well. He's going to dive deep into the stormwater plan and some other items in our presentation, and here to answer any additional questions from a civil perspective. And then we also have Jason Banglis from the client here to share a little bit more about client and their operations. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. Do you guys see?
Yes, Morgan, we see it.
Great, thank you so much. So what I wanted to share here, start the presentation off with, is just the progress that's been made since we were last in front of the village board for the GDP review specifically. So we have submitted the transportation impact analysis, the TIA, to the village, to the county, and to WSDOT. As you guys know, for any project of this scale, this is a required step in the process and is very collaborative. So we work very closely with village, county, and WDOT on all of the assumptions that go into this, as well as any of the final required improvements. And so just want to highlight that we've submitted this, but it's very much in progress as we continue discussion with those jurisdictional authorities. Another important point to make is we have kicked off offsite and onsite utility design with village staff. And this is not just to accommodate our facility, but really all of the options that we're evaluating service the entire TID 10 or have future service for the entire TID 10, as well as the parcel directly to our west. That's been a very important topic of conversation, and we are fully committed into supporting those villages' goals from a utility perspective. We've also created a detailed stormwater management plan, which is under review by village staff. So this is kind of the first step in that PIP submittal. We've also included a private well memo because we know there was a lot of questions in regards to that as well. Adam on our team will be sharing a little bit more later in this presentation, specifically around that stormwater detail. We've also submitted a lighting plan, including spec sheets and a photometric plan to the village. We know it's really important from a consideration standpoint to hit all village and county ordinances. And so providing this information up front is a very important step of this project. And most importantly, I want to highlight, we have hosted 2 additional community office hours, not last Monday, but the Monday prior on February 7th. And from that, we heard a lot of feedback from the local neighbors and community, and we're able to update the site plan design with some feedback from those sessions, as well as village staff, as well as update the developer FAQs to add additional answers to those questions that arose during that session. So with that, that's kind of some of the progress we've made since we were last in front of your team, and I would love to pass it to Jason in order to share a little bit more about the client.
Thanks, Morgan. First, I just want to say thank you to the Board of Trustees for allowing me to talk on behalf of Project Silver Eagle this night. I'm excited for 2 reasons, not just because I'm an Amazon employee, but also I'm a fellow Wisconsinite. So as Morgan said, my name is Jason Banglis, and I lead economic development through the state of Wisconsin and throughout the central Midwest for Amazon. And I want to talk about three things this evening. The first is to add more structure around outcomes and expectations for Project Silver Eagle. Then spend some time talking about how we might fulfill some of those outcomes that I'll talk about this evening. And then finally provide some context or clarity around some of the site selection criteria that went into Project Silver Eagle. So what might one expect from Project Silver Eagle? Well, it's a contemplated ARS facility, which represents the first mile of Amazon's fulfillment network, focused on the storage of goods and the fulfillment of orders, which is very different than the existing facility, Amazon facility in Madison, located on Milwaukee Street, which is a delivery station focused on the last or final mile of delivery of our orders. There's no intention for last mile activity to take place at the Cottage Grove facility. What makes an ARS facility unique is the use of Amazon robotics, which not only streamlines and creates efficiencies in our fulfillment network, but also provides an opportunity for our associates to engage and work with some of the most advanced and innovative technology in the industry. One can also expect the creation of up to 1,500 new good jobs into the region. The positions will range from hourly associates to salaried management and leadership roles. Those management and leadership roles have an opportunity certainly for local recruitment, but also an opportunity to have net recruitment of new skilled and highly talented individuals from Amazon's existing network into the region through their growth and development. One can also expect a robust benefits package. Amazon associates are provided on day one a comprehensive set of healthcare benefits, which includes up to 20 weeks of paid parental leave. Our paid parental leave program also includes a leave share opportunity, which allows our associates to share their paid parental leave with their spouse or significant other. It also provides a ramp back program that allows our associates that have taken advantage of their paid parental leave to ease back into the workplace with a flexible schedule. And finally, it also includes a market-leading and industry innovative professional development program. Amazon is committed to invest over $1 billion in its Career Choice program, which provides prepayment tuition assistance, up to $5,250 for our associates that have been with Amazon for at least 90 days. There's no years of service requirement, and there's no expectation to repay dollars should that employee decide to leave. Furthermore, they're allowed to engage in courses of study that earn degree programs related to Amazon and unrelated to Amazon, because that's our commitment to employees. And finally, you can expect partnership. Amazon has recently created a new leadership principle that recognizes success and scale bring broad responsibility. It goes on to say our local communities, planet, and future generations need us to be better every day. We must begin each day with a determination to make better, do better, and be better for our customers, our employees, our partners, and the world at large. That is our commitment to partnership. What does it take to fill those 1,500 new jobs? Well, first, it's important to note that those positions are not filled overnight. There is a ramp period, and they're filled over time. Our workforce staffing team works and partners with groups like MadRep, other workforce development agencies, job placement agencies, and other community-based organizations to share the Amazon story, one that is compelling, with competitive wages, robust benefits, market-leading professional development, and a commitment to workplace safety. And finally, location. The Department of Workforce Development here in the state of Wisconsin provides data around commuting patterns in and out of Dane County, where workers live, where they commute to. And what we found is that employees working in Dane County live as far north as Sauk County, as far east as Jefferson County, and as far south as Rock County. And we fully expect and anticipate to have the full range of these counties in recruitment for job seekers for these positions, including right here in Dane County. And finally, on the topic of location, I'll briefly just talk about some of the site selection criteria that were considered for this particular project. There are really three factors that we looked at. Access to transportation infrastructure, and certainly the proximity to I-94 checks the box for this. The next is site readiness, or the ability to deliver the site on time. Matt touched on some of the topics that the village has taken over the past decade or so to earmark this particular location for development and align the goals of the village around this type of project. And we think that this has created the environment to be able to meet that need. And finally is workforce. Amazon completes its own due diligence studies around workforce, and we've determined that this particular site meets that requirement. I know that there's additional details around the site plan that Morgan has for you, but look forward to answering any questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason. As he mentioned, Jason will also be available for additional questions. So moving on to some of the updates made to the site plan since we were last in front of this group. So based off of feedback, as we've mentioned, heard from the community and from village staff, we have added 2 additional sound walls around the west and north side of the facility, adding additional buffer to the residential neighbors that are located around us. We also have improved the retaining wall on the east side of our property, which not only acts as a structural element, but also again protects against the residential receptors on our east, as well as viewpoints from McCarthy Park, which is located just about a mile away at a lower elevation. So it really does help protect for those moments where you are at a higher elevation looking over to our site. We also partnered with the village to determine pedestrian improvements and multimodal pathways, both around our site and to our site. We know this is an important consideration and work closely with village staff to finalize those designs. We've also agreed to collaborate with the village on final selection of trees and landscaping materials for the buffer, as well as the undeveloped sites. While we've submitted a comprehensive landscaping plan, we are all for any recommendations on specific species or tree selections that matter most to this local community. And lastly, we have committed to dark sky compliant lighting in our lighting plan. This is at the highest end of visual protection and something we are committing to on all of our external outside lights. So with that, just showing the site plan so we can see some of these elements that I discussed, as well as I'll highlight some of the other items that were originally in the design. So we'll start with the retaining walls. So the proposed retaining walls here on the western portion and eastern portion are very important. Moving from west to east, there is an incredible topo change, about a full 44 feet moving from west to east and about 20 feet going just to our property line. So as you can tell, that grade change in elevation means that we need a really significant proposed retaining wall in order to support the facility as well as our properties to the west. This also acts as a sound and light barrier to our neighbors. As well, on top of that proposed retaining wall, as I've mentioned, we've added an additional sound wall on the western and northeast portion of our site, as well as that landscaping buffer. So all of those items are designed with our neighbors in mind in order to best protect from a sound and light perspective. I want to call out this existing conservation easement here, as well as the wetlands located here, really prevent us shifting our building footprint east. We also want to be really cognizant of the fact that we do have residential receptors here on the eastern side, and really keeping as much distance from them and our truck courts as possible is very important from a design consideration. To quickly hit upon traffic, which I know is a really important topic, and as we've mentioned, this is very core to any development of this scale and of our project specifically. Safety is the most important consideration here. And so we work really closely with all the jurisdictional authorities to ensure that we are not just meeting, but surpassing requirements. And so what I want to highlight here, and we can answer additional questions around the detail of the TIA, but just from a design standpoint, we do have 4 access points. One here on the north, exclusively for ingress of trucks. 3 here for passenger vehicles. It's really important from our design standpoint to not intermix truck traffic and passenger vehicle traffic. From a safety perspective, that's a big no-no from our operational standpoint. So that's why it's really important to keep that entrance separate. Also want to highlight that based off of our TIA and all of the analysis our traffic engineers have done, 0% of truck traffic will be coming north on County Highway N or south of Interstate 94. 100% of our truck vehicle traffic will be traveling directly to our site to I-94. Passenger vehicle traffic is distributed across all of our access points in various directions. And again, those percentages of that traffic allocation is done very closely in collaboration with the village and county to ensure that our assumptions are accurate. With that, just wanted to pass it along to Adam on my team to be able to share a little bit more about our stormwater management plan and where we sit today.
Thank you, Morgan. As Morgan mentioned, my name is Adam Arts from Pinnacle Engineering Group. I am a Wisconsin-based engineer. I am a professional engineer, and I am a Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection official drainage engineer as well. So I can't speak on this behalf from a professional engineering standpoint. If you draw your attention to the slide, on the left slide is a representation of how the existing stormwater drainage patterns are working. And on the right side is how the proposed stormwater system is really set up to kind of mimic the existing conditions. So going back to the left, you can see we put little white arrows just generally representing the flow from the highs to the lows on the site. If you think of this site, it can be generalized as rolling topography, meaning there's highs and lows, and the highs are draining to topographic draws that ultimately end up discharging in some concentrated areas. The main site discharge on the left there is represented by an orange star in the background there. That's a existing large diameter culvert that crosses under Highway N, and it basically takes water from our site easterly and ultimately into the Koshkonong Creek. The site elevations itself are very dramatic, and if you kind of start at the bottom right of the existing stormwater, that's an elevate bottom right, Morgan, down a little bit. There you go. That elevation is about 975. But as you go up to the marker on the right, the highway TT marker, it actually goes up in elevation a little bit, about 10 feet to about 985. But then if you go straight down into that topographic draw into our site right in the middle there, that discoloration in the farm field, that drops down to about 927. So there is extreme topography that's very much concentrated in the stormwater. And then as you kind of follow that discoloration in the farm field into the trees and ultimately to that orange marker, that's about a 916. And Morgan highlighted this earlier in the presentation, that this is something that's really causing all our grading design and stormwater design to really make sure that we mimic the existing conditions. So if we switch over to the right side of the screen, this is nothing more than our drainage areas that are contributing to each one of our ponds that really define areas of drainage. And starting at the bottom, the red shade or the translucent red, and that there's areas of the Silver Ridge Lane and residential subdivision, those couple commercial buildings. In totality, it's about 34 acres of runoff comes into our site. I think it's very important to bring this up because there's been many kind of inverted viewpoints on our stormwater that we're discharging into the Silver Ridge Lane during our developer office hours and just general kind of discussion throughout these meetings. That water is actually coming into our property. It's verified by topography and existing Koshkonong Creek watershed maps in Dane County. So that water, in conjunction with the different colors in our site, ultimately enter into our pond system. We're proposing 3 wet detention ponds and then 1 dry infiltration basin. The wet detention ponds will provide water quality treatment to it. And in Wisconsin, we really represent total suspended solids as the main water quality component, but they'll also be clay lined and they'll be vegetated. So oil and grease controls will be provided through natural vegetation, but we also have upstream controls as well in our storm sewer system. And then those wet detention basins will all act in series and they'll clean the water. The standard that we have here in Wisconsin that we use is 80% treatment, which generally defines a total pollutant load, but it also goes to the size of particle that it treats. Our preliminary modeling shows 96% removal, so we're well in excess of what's there. And then ultimately that water is discharged into our infiltration basin, which is sized to meet the 90% of the pre-development infiltration value. We're exceeding that as well in an effort to really control the stormwater management on our site, not just from our site, but also the upstream contributing area. And these ponds will ultimately provide, runoff rate attenuation, fancy word for detention, for a 1 year, 2 year, 10 year, 100 year, and 200 year storm events, which is the newest Dane County ordinance out there. So what's been provided to the village shows compliance that our pond system will meet standards in place today. Kind of taking it to the next level, there's been some discussion on how this will contaminate surrounding properties, wells. all the measures that are there to treat the water from a suspended solid standpoint, oil and grease control are really surface runoff. But in the groundwater situation, our ponds did have soil borings in every one of our ponds. And then we also had monitoring wells to try to find the static water elevation of our groundwater table. We didn't find static groundwater anywhere on our site except the lowlands, which are generally along Highway N. The mapping of the static elevations that were in our monitoring well shows that the water is generally traversing from west high to east low. So that's something that we're very confident that subsurface flow is, again, going away from the residences. So we believe that our stormwater report that was submitted shows general compliance. It really vets our site plan, which is really the idea of the PIP submission. But we did provide modeling. We did provide everything to rationalize that. And we've had numerous conversations with the village's consulting engineer. We look forward to, taking that next step, which is finalizing construction documents and, a formal final stormwater management plan. Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate that insight. So with that, here's a quick rendering of the facility. This showcases the alternating metal panels and precast on the exterior, as well as some proposed landscaping. And then these next couple of slides are just perspective views that were put together by our design modeling software utilizing existing Google Maps and then our proposed facility based off of the height and access points. So if you can see here, driving west on I-94, you see our building in the background. This is a perspective view coming at the roundabout on County Road TT and N with our facility in the background here. This is driving on County Road TT as you exit the roundabout. And then this is the viewpoint at the end of Silver Ridge Lane. As we noted, there's a very significant topo change. So the building does sit kind of sunken within the middle of our site. One thing I want to highlight here is this Google Maps photo clearly was taken when there's a lot of tree foliage. So it's a little difficult to see our sound wall behind it, but so that will be, you'll have landscaping, then sound wall, and then retaining wall, all as barriers between our facility and Silver Ridge Lane. So with that, I just want to end really quickly on community benefits. I know Jason touched upon many of these items, but just to highlight before we end our presentation. So we are committing to invest $200 million in capital by this project specifically, up to 1,000 to 1,500 full-time jobs generated specifically from our project's operations. We are directly investing in the improved infrastructure surrounding the site, including roadways, sewer and water utilities, and walking and multimodal paths. The user does partner with community organizations and local schools, particularly to give back with a focus on STEM education. And as Jason mentioned, there are strong career advancements, opportunities, and benefit packages for employees. And lastly, as Jason Fields mentioned from MadRep, based off of their economic analysis, we would anticipate to create additional jobs above and beyond the 1,000 to 1,500 generated by our project operations, adding about 17 million in new wages to the economy. So both a tremendous amount of direct impact as well as indirect impact from a facility and operations of this type. So with that, we would love to finish our presentation and send it back to John and the village board, and we're here to answer any questions that may arise.
All right, thanks, Morgan. I think we'll kick it to both Aaron and then Josh, and then come back and ask any questions either for you, Morgan, or anyone else that's kind of presented at this point. So with that, Aaron, do you want to kind of walk through your report?
Yeah, thanks, John. Just wanted to touch on one thing before we start going through the recommended conditions and turning it over to Josh. So one of the reasons we bring Josh here as the village engineer is because he knows about a wide variety of things and can speak very eloquently about them. But Strand also has people in their office who do, spend all day, every day working on very specific things that they specialize in. One of those things is traffic, and Josh will cover that when we get to his turn here. Another specialist at Strand that we've made use of during this process is one of their building system engineers who kind of specializes in fire suppression systems. He was involved early on along with the fire chief and fire inspector from Cottage Grove Fire Department in reviewing their suppression systems, and the strand engineer commented it was above and beyond what's typical in terms of just the number of sprinklers, how close they are together, the redundancy and backup to the water that's provided through the system. We sent our conditions, both Josh and I had some conditions that related to various fire issues. I mentioned the radios, Josh talks about hydrants and some other things. And the chief did not have any additional recommendations on top of those. So as far as the conditions that we do have, some of these are similar to what we had at the GDP approval. So I'll just kind of touch on the newer ones. So starting with number 2, just confirming that it's our understanding that this project is and will remain a middle mile facility, as Jason was talking about. It is not one that's intended to host vehicles that deliver directly to customers. And if a change is ever proposed from the current facility type to that sort of last mile facility, that would require an amendment to the planned unit development approval so we can study any traffic noise impacts, etc. with that change. We're asking that the applicant provide a plan describing the full range of proposed noise mitigation practices, structures, materials, and landscaping for staff review. Morgan touched on a few of these things, but we like them all in one document. And then the village maintains the right to engage a sound engineer or similar professional to review that noise mitigation plan, and that would be at the applicant's expense, like any other consultant review. Minor changes to the proposed grading or landscaping type and location could be permitted with staff approval if they're done with the goal of furthering that noise mitigation as described in that plan. We're recommending some additional tree planting locations to improve the screening described by the comp plan. That's shown in figure 1 in the report, basically along the hillside on Ann, along the driveways off of TT, extending further north along the west property line, then around the east and northeast corner of the truck bay. Final stormwater management plan needs to comply with the requirements in the DNR's water quality approval letter, which was final approval at the urban service area process. Some of the items in that letter included maintaining the hydrology of the existing wetland that Morgan mentioned, and then to coordinate the management of stormwater discharge with the town and town engineer. I corresponded with Chairman Updike at the town earlier this week, and Dane County is acting as the basically as the engineer for the purpose of this approval. And so Dane County's engineering staff is also looking at the stormwater management. Morgan mentioned the environmental easement that's on the former Greedy property. It's an easement that's held by the town. The treatment of that will have to comply with the conditions of the easement. It did look like on one of the drawings, there was some tree removal shown within the easement, and we just like to reiterate that that needs to stay in its current state. Again, reiterating that the village has the right to test for compliance with the village noise ordinances, and the applicant would be responsible for the costs of any the cost of remediating any issues that are causing violations. Likewise, trees will have to be replaced as needed to maintain the amount and type of landscaping shown on the plan. The notes on the landscaping plan regarding the maintenance of the native plantings or prairie area calls for a prescribed burn every 4th year. We just want to make sure prior to doing that, they notify the village, the town of Sun Prairie, and the Cottage Grove Fire Department no less than 72 hours prior. There's a detail on the landscaping plan that gives instructions for planting a tree on a slope. There's a lot of trees getting planted on a lot of slopes, so we just want them to specify the minimum slope at which that detail is to be used. We will require a bike ped path that's separate from the vehicular drives that connects from the end of the existing path on TT to a bike parking area in the vicinity of the entrance. The fixtures provided are dark sky compliant according to the specs that were provided. We will need to see the full lighting plan, including not just the parking lot and driveway lighting, but any lighting that's on the building. And then we did get the photometric plan earlier today, but we'll need to review that and make sure it also shows compliance with the village ordinances. And then last, one additional condition recommended by the village attorney. And this isn't new, it's really just a reminder that the applicant and the village will also need to enter into a mutually agreeable developer agreement after this process. So that's what I've got. Josh, if you want to take it away.
Thanks, Aaron. So the name's Josh Straka from Strand Associates. I wanted to introduce myself tonight to obviously the board knows me, but everybody else on the call. We're a consultant for the village. On behalf of the village, we look at these developments that come in. We check all of the different engineering requirements, as Aaron mentioned. And it's not just me, myself. It's a traffic specialist, stormwater specialist, as far as a fire specialist, as far as the building is concerned, and even an electrical specialist as far as photometrics for the lighting. I act as the village engineer and know a lot about all of those, but I have other professional engineers like myself review those sorts of things too. So tonight, what I'd like to discuss is a handful of things that I discussed at the Plan Commission meeting. The overall traffic, the utility connections, the fire protection as part of the facility. And then ultimately you heard some talk earlier on how some of this stuff was going to connect to the rest of the TID and TID 10 and how we would serve that. We'll talk a little bit about stormwater. I think Adam gave a pretty good all around kind of vet of the stormwater side of things, and then lighting and the noise analysis at the end. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and get started here. See that?
Yes, Josh, we can.
It's an aerial right now, but I'm going to switch back to the overall traffic side. So I'm going to start with traffic here tonight. And while Langdon put together a very, very thorough report, maybe not all of you have gone through 180 pages of it. And what I wanted to do tonight is just kind of step through how they come up with the traffic, how they look at background traffic to just this, not just this site, but the rest of the village and what's going on, and how they apply that to the roadways at hand. So, looking at the roadways here, you have the interchange as I zoom in, and then you have TT that's just going east-west south of the site, and County Trunk Highway N that's north and south along the eastern edge of the site. It's important to note that the state has the jurisdiction over the roundabout interchange. And like Matt mentioned, they improved that a handful of years ago. And it's meant for development in this area. It's meant for growing traffic patterns. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then also the county road has jurisdiction both north and south on N and east and west on County Road T. And when the development team a few months back got together and talked to us and the county, they talked about what intersections they were planning on studying, and we pointed out some that we would like them to study at the same time. And as the ones that were studied was down here, intersection 1, which is Commerce Park, Gaston, and N. 2, 3, which would be the interchange. 4 is the roundabout to the north, right by the gas station there. And then there are 4 access points, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then their 5th one was the intersection all the way to the north, up here at T and N. So they studied these intersections, and what they did is they went out, they counted peak traffic periods at the intersections and really studied the amount of traffic that's out there today, and then applied background traffic, and we'll get to that in a second. The first thing I'd like to look at is what is the average daily traffic on end today? So ADT stands for average daily traffic. Right now in 2018, when the DOT last counted along the county road here, just north of the site, there were 6,100 vehicles. Same on TT, just west of the site. In 2006, a little bit older of a count, there was 3,700 vehicles. I still expect that to be lower than what is on end today, but it could be a little bit more than this 3,700 that they're showing in 2006. At the same time, south of the Commerce Park Road and Gaston Road intersection, there's around 10,700 in 2018. So some important things to note. This rural highway, while there's 6,100 vehicles there today, it could handle double that pretty easily with the amount of accesses that is out there. There isn't a lot of access along it. It could range anywhere from 10 to 16,000 vehicles a day before it would need this expansion. Once you're getting closer to that 16,000 vehicles a day, you're going to want to expand that to a four-lane facility. So it can handle quite a bit more than what it's seeing today out there before an expansion is needed. Same as to the south. This is a 4-lane facility to the south, so around the Commerce Park area that can handle 20+ thousand vehicles a day on the 4-lane section down there. So there's capacity both north and south, and obviously the interstate and interchange have been approved to handle additional capacity. So looking into their report a little further, let's just talk about some of their operation. So their operation and what they highlight is a staggered shift period out here where they have half staggered shifts. So in the morning, there's a 30-minute stagger between the first half of the shift and the second half. And that's going to be taking place around the 7 a.m. period. And that shift's going to go from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then in the evening, they have the same thing from 6 o'clock, 5:30 to 6 o'clock, a staggered 30-minute shift. And then they go to 4:30 a.m. The reason I'm pointing this out is when we look at these intersections, we're going to look at the peak periods. When they went out and counted these intersections, they counted them for the peak 1 hour of the day, both morning and night. And part of the way they're setting up their traffic or their shifts is just outside of those peak periods to help get people in and out and not to have the impact on the intersections. So what they study is they study the 21 existing conditions. So what is out there when they counted it late in 2021 and what's going to be out there in 23. They have without development and with development. I'm going to talk about what that means here in a second. Dane County is already also requesting that they project this traffic 10 additional years, which is pretty common. It means they grow the outside traffic 1 to 2% a year at what may contribute to additional traffic at these intersections after this facility is open. Also then looking at just their site, just to understand their site a little bit, is, there's 324 stalls for tractor trailers. With 47 loading docks at the site. So there is a decent amount of large vehicles that are going to be accommodated at the site. And then you'll hear all about, and quite a few times, the 1,700 parking spaces. Sounds like a lot of parking spaces, and it is, but they're not all going to be occupied at once. We have to remember that the staff changes are happening while people are still at work. They have people arriving to work. So they want additional parking so those people can park as they go inside the building, relieve that shift, and they can come out and leave the facility. So the parking need is not only for just the people that are working there, but also to accommodate the staff shifts that are happening at the same time. I want to talk a little bit about traffic flow in and out of the site. Even though we've mentioned it, I want to just kind of talk about it again. Truck traffic is in blue here. Here's the roundabout and BP. So the blue back and forth truck traffic is going up to their truck entrance. And only trucks can enter at this zone. There's a guard shack here with a fenced off area, and all of the parking in the back has a fence around it. So the employees in the front of the facility cannot get around to the back. That's designed so that they don't intermix. You heard Morgan talk about safety, and that would be our number one concern too. You don't want people that are visiting the site or coming to work to be able to get into that back area. You want that secure. You want the trucks to be able to get in and out and have a large area to queue up after they come off of County Trunk Highway N so that they don't back out onto that. So you see this long driveway access for the trucks. And then the green access points are for the vehicles that are coming to work there in the facility. They're entering at site A, B, and C. So they're entering at the three different sites, and then they're leaving and going back out towards either north or south along N and east and west along T. Let's talk a little bit about, like Morgan said, their team met with the county, met with us at the time, and they wanted to talk to how this traffic would be distributed from this facility. So 30% of the employees will be coming from the east on 94, and 30% will be coming from the west on 94. So 60% of the people that are going to be coming there working are anticipated to come in and from the interchange and I-94. 20% will come locally from the south, so from the village and further south on County Trunk Highway N. 10% locally from the west, 5% locally from the east, and 5% from the north. These local percentages may vary a little bit from one to the other, but in general, they make sense for the traffic distribution. Important to note, and it's been said several times tonight, 60% of the truck traffic will be coming from the west on 94, 40% from the east on 94. There's no, we are not anticipating and don't expect truck traffic to be going north and south along Highway N. You can imagine if this is a warehouse facility, the distribution of and warehouse, coming and going, they're going to want to be on these routes that they don't experience delay on. They don't want to travel through communities with slower traffic speed limits through school zones. We agree with some of those concerns. We don't want them there either, and I don't believe that they want to be there at the same time. So let's look a little bit about peak traffic. And I mentioned peak traffic before, and again, that's the morning AM peak. And when they studied these intersections and counted them, they counted them before that. So let's say they counted them from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So 6 to 10 a.m. What they found is from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. is that peak hour. That's when the most traffic were at these locations. And then on the backside, they may have counted from like 2 to like 7. And what they found was that from 3:15 to 4:15 was the peak hour at night at these intersections. Actually more in the afternoon than later. You might expect maybe 5 to 6. It was happening a little bit earlier than that for PM peak. And what they found when they counted them is I just included what they got in that one peak hour. So on the south, near the Commerce Parkway and Gaston Road at that intersection, they had in the AM 1,632 vehicles. That's moving in all directions, and that's one trip. So if the same vehicle went north and 10 minutes later came south again, that was counted as 2 trips. So it's every trip. 10 trucks out of that 1,600, and the PM 1,400 with 5 trucks. Not a lot of truck traffic, mainly probably in and out of the business park, or some large truck traffic maybe heading south along N for maybe construction. PM peak at the first roundabout, 1,600, 11 trucks, 14, close to 1,500, and 13 trucks in the morning. Same on the northern one, 1,500 vehicles, 12 trucks. PM peak, 1,679 trucks. You can see the traffic drops off quite a bit after you leave the interchange and go north. In the AM, there's only 700 vehicles, 740. PM, roughly the same, 708. Very little truck traffic today out there. And that will increase a little bit as the site is developed. But again, the traffic here is quite a bit less than it is at the interchange. So now I wanted to show, well, how does adding traffic to these intersections look? And we made their team study not only their own development, but the other developments that were taking place in the village at the same time. So you have a list of 10 different developments that are under construction, just constructed, and that have been approved here recently and will likely be fairly operational in 2023 when this facility is also functioning. And these range throughout the community. Some are in Commerce Park, some are as far south down in this Atlantis Valley. Foods is in here, that's out in Commerce Park, but Authentic Apartments is down by Village Hall. So they range in a variety of different places throughout the community. And it shows what their expectation for AM peak is going to be and PM peak hour, that same kind of hour that we were looking at before. And then a weekday ADT, so the total amount of traffic for the whole day that they will distribute. So roughly 5,539 vehicles. Now that's not all going north. Some of that might be distributed south, some of that could be distributed along Cottage Grove Road at the same time. So what they're looking at is a proportion of that is going to head north, and it's going to mix with their traffic. So when they show the modeling, they include some of this heading north and impacting the roundabouts at the interchange, and then north of that at the gas station and the access points that they're going to create. So what are they going to create at their site? So AM peak hours, they show a distribution coming out here of 403. On the PM peak, 436 actual vehicles. So if a vehicle enters their site and exits, remember that's counted twice. That's 2 vehicles, not just 1 vehicle. That would be counted as 2 vehicles. For a total trips for the day of 3,038 vehicles. They break it down a little further for trucks and passenger vehicles. So that's 588 trucks and 2,750 passenger vehicles during the day. Now, that's all day long. Their peaks are still, remember, in the AM 400, and then in the PM just slightly higher at 436. So let's put that together with the traffic that you have out there today and the other trips that are being generated south of here, that some of them will be coming further to the north. Let's start here at the bottom. What you have today in the AM is 1,600, remember, at Commerce Parkway. With all the trips south of here that would be generated and their trips that are going to be heading south, it would be 200, 2004. And not many of their trips are projected headed south. If you recall, only about 20% of them were coming from the south to their site or leaving and going to their site. Truck traffic is going to stay relatively the same because we aren't anticipating trucks heading south at all along Highway N. The only reason that the trucks increase a little bit in the AM and the PM is that the vehicles that are coming in and out of Commerce Parkway with some of the other development that's taking place. At the interchange, again, 2,000 vehicles in the AM, 2,300 in the PM. It's increased fairly the same. The truck traffic is more, and this is where the trucks are getting on and off. Both at this interchange, you can see they're higher in red, and then also on the northern interchange, they're higher in red. And that makes sense. That's where the trucks are coming on and off and going to the Amazon Project X site and then leaving at the same time. Again, that's where you see the truck traffic pick up at the 4 right at the BP roundabout there next to the gas station. The traffic also increases here. Instead of 700 vehicles a day, in the morning it's 1,700. And that's not all from their site. Remember, in the AM peak, they're only generating 400 of those. A lot of it is also from all the development that is taking place south in the village from some of these other developments that you will have along all of these corridors as the village grows. And then in the PM, the same thing, 700 vehicles typically today, and then 1,500. Now, this is the average day, right? Some days are going to have a little bit more, some days are going to have a little less. We can only model for the average day. So with that, I want to just show you what does that do. They take all of this information, the background information, their trips that they're generating at their site, the existing trips that are out there, and they put it into modeling. And there's a lot of numbers to go through. That's where the 180 pages are generated. And we're just going to talk briefly about some of the modeling. And we're going to start out with what is called the Highway Capacity Manual's level of safety. So it's a nationwide level of service. And what that means is delay. How long are you waiting at a location or at an intersection? And it's just like your grades at school, except there's an E in here, and A, B, C, you're all doing good. D, E, F, you're starting to get pretty bad. Really, when we look at intersections, when they hit the level of service D for delay, that's when we think about what kind of changes can take place. What do we need to improve at that intersection to make it function better? And a level of service D at a traffic signal is different than at a stop sign and a roundabout. We don't like to wait as long at those. So that level of service D is at 26 to 35 seconds of delay. And for a signal, it's 36 to 55 seconds. Now, what's important to note on level of service is this is average. So this is if I go to a signal, one day I might be 15 seconds, the other day I might be 60 seconds. It's kind of an average over a week, 2-week period at that location. So it's not every time you go there, you should expect to see 36 seconds on average or at every time. It's an average type of waiting. So what they did is they looked at each one of these intersections. They took the peak hour. And in this instance, this is Main Street and Gaston Road, Commerce Parkway. So down at your traffic signal today. And they looked at the existing condition each movement through left, right, eastbound, westbound, every movement that's possible there, because they counted those and then projected the traffic out. And they get an overall level of service. So today it's at 15 seconds. It's a level of service B. It's functioning very nicely. With no build of the Project X site, but growth throughout the community, you're still at a B at 19 seconds. When you build the facility to the north, you get to a level of service C, but it's just over that threshold. It goes from 19 seconds to 20 seconds. So it's a very little increase in this case. And we could go through all the AM and all the PM peaks. You know, they work their way to the next intersection here. So for instance, here's the eastbound ramps, AAA. The ramps have been designed for this traffic when they came back through in the state improved them. AAA at the northern one in the AM peak period. Very little change you're going to see at that. The county highway roundabout to the north also has, the N and TT to the north has good service at level of service A, both existing and then with the proposed traffic. There's not much change AM to PM peak. The only delay that starts to pick up, and I think it was questioned before, was the approach westbound. So as you're getting off, David, I think you asked this question before. As you're coming from, let's say, the Milwaukee direction, and you're getting off at that interchange, and you want to go, you know, even right or left or through and go back down to the community, as you start to see a delay there. And that does continue to get a little bit more as the traffic picks up along these roundabouts. You tend to stagger in that as it heads back up the interchange. It doesn't seem like it's a long queue, and over time that should you know, disperse out nicely, but you will have a little bit more queuing at that location. We've asked the design team to look into that a little bit more as they final report this. And the state, it should be important, the state is looking at this and the county is looking at this at the same time. So all entities are looking at these facilities. There's been a lot of talk about trucks, and I want to just point out roundabouts and trucks. I do a lot of roundabout work for the state, for other states, and it's important to note that these roundabouts were designed with trucks in mind. They provide what's called a gored entry, so it provides more space so that as a truck comes through, it can track into this gore without kind of pinning the vehicle on the other side. So they widen the entry with this gore striping so the truck can track there. They provide truck aprons. Everybody always, you know, it's pretty common for people to say, well, the truck is tracking over the curb. And it was not designed for the truck because it goes onto the curb section. Well, it's supposed to in this case. The trucks are supposed to track in this colored area. It's a truck apron that as they track through, their back rear of their truck tracks there. The reason it's there is so that vehicles can't go flying through this location straight. It provides a bump out, so vehicles have to go around it and it slows vehicles down, but trucks are allowed to track over it. And that's at all of these locations. So it was designed for trucks. It has trucks in mind. When you get to the northern one, it kind of narrows down to single lanes or multi-lanes that just flare out at the entries. You have to give room for trucks at roundabouts. That is something that they will dominate both lanes if they can. They will go through the roundabout and try to dominate it and use their space so that they can navigate through it. And we have to give them the way at roundabouts. And that's anywhere in the state, that is the case. So jumping back to, I'm going to go through the traffic. Last little thing to look at, again, we can come back and talk numbers, but it's just their access points. So their furthest access on TT. So you have the roundabout, and then the first access, this is the second access. So the furthest to the west. There really is no improvements on TT. It functions nicely the way they've modeled it. They have a right and left out of their facility. And then we are suggesting that maybe they just tack on a little right turn bay here so that as people are trying to turn into the facility, you don't have through movements, you know, waiting on them or potentially them kind of hitting the brakes and having a little rear end accident. So a minor little adjustment there. Same thing on the one from, here's the gas station as you're leaving the roundabout and coming to their first access on TT. It's kind of set up for a through and left into the facility. They have a right only to turn into what would be other development here. If somebody's trying to turn left, they can go around them, which is nice, instead of waiting for a turn left vehicle. And then we're again asking that they add on kind of a right turn tack on bay there in purple. Then when you head up N, when you're coming from the south, and here's the roundabout on N, and you're heading north along N, they're providing and carving out a left turn bay. Today at the gas station, there's kind of this left, we call it a two-way left turn lane, or a twiddle you hear sometimes, and the vehicle can get out into this left turn and go into the gas station. They're just extending that. We're asking them to kind of even take that back a little bit further, extend it 50 feet. Maybe this all turns into a left turn bay so they can store their vehicles and they can make their left-hand turn. Again, this is only supposed to be for employee vehicles. This isn't the truck access at this point. We'd also suggest maybe a little tack on right turn bay just for the vehicles, the employees that are coming from the north here. And then finally, the furthest one to the north on Highway N. It's important to note they've shifted this access point further south. The reason they did that is to provide adequate stop site distance. So when people are coming over that approach from the north, there's a hill there. As they come over that hill, they can see a vehicle that ultimately is turning left, or another object that could be at this intersection, and they have enough time to react and stop if something is out in the middle of the intersection. And then they also, what we're asking is they provide a left turn bay here for their truck traffic so that through movements can get out and around them. They're still exploring some things here. There's talk about a potential roundabout, some other stuff, and we're working with them, the county, to get the right improvements here. Remember, the county has jurisdiction on all four of these access points as far as what do the improvements look on the county highway. The village has the right to provide that access point and the number of access points for this development. So it's kind of a work in progress, and the county has made some comments too that we've included as part of our report back to Planning Commission. I wanted to point out traffic overall because there's been this thought that there's a lot of traffic that's generated by this facility, and there's going to be traffic generated by the facility. But prior to this, Gray Wolf had a number of proposals that they were pushing forward, and like Matt said, you know, we get a lot of different proposals and things that were taking place at this site. Here's one of them. It's basically the same exact footprint as far as area as the Gray Wolf site, except it doesn't include this, or I'm sorry, as Project X site. It doesn't include though this little parcel here, which Project X site now does. So it would have actually had more traffic had it included this site. It's interesting to note, even outside of traffic though, there really is no connection to the western parcel as part of this proposal, and we can talk about potentially maybe why in a second here. But as far as traffic here, they had a big user that was going to come in, and then they had this all parceled out to be used, the rest of the site to be used as more development. 5 access points, 1, 2, 3 along TT, and then 2 along N, 1 here and then 1 further to the north. This northern one would likely have had to have been shifted further south because of the site distance. But the traffic generated from these 1, 2, 3 access points on T, and then the 2 additional on N, in the peak periods that they were projecting, it was going to be 825 vehicles. And in the PM, in the peak 1 hour, they were projecting 1,220. That's a double of what Project Silver Eagle is projecting in the AM, and over 3 times higher in the PM. Some of that, why is that, is this is a facility where they're coming and going with large shifts. And 2, if you've looked at their site, there is a good amount of their site that is not developed here, is planned to be developed at this point. If it would be further developed someday, that would have to come back, like Aaron said, to Plan Commission, where we would have to look at these intersections again and make improvements if needed. But the way they're proposing now in their land development is, you know, the traffic that they're projecting is quite a bit less than what it could have been with prior proposals just 6 months ago. So I'm going to move on to utilities real quickly and the connections for utilities. So here is the GIS for the village. Here's the roundabout by the gas station that's just to the north. And there's water in blue that comes up and goes along TT here and just goes a little ways to the north on N. And then sanitary is this lighter green that comes up, crosses the interchange here, and then comes up and over to TT. As part of this, there was a little stub brought across TT, and we'll talk about that stub in a second as part of this. So water and sewer is kind of right at TT in the intersection by the roundabout and doesn't really extend too much further north at this time. What was designed and extended to pick up the rest of the TID area as far as capacity is concerned. So as far as the site right now and what was proposed as far as the PIP was sewer in green was going to come out and travel down along N, and blue was going to be the water main that would circle the site and come back out on N as well as part of the facility. This would likely have required a lift station here on the corner and then lifted back up and over to the gravity sewer on the other side of the roundabout. They couldn't quite get the grade to work from here up into their site with their facility as proposed initially. We've since started then working with them, and it's still in the works as far as utilities are concerned, exactly the extension that they're going to need. But we'd like to come off the gravity sewer here that I talked about on T and come up and along this side of their development to serve them by gravity here if possible. They're still looking at their facility to see if they can get to gravity here, but this would also provide gravity service to part of the TID to the west, which is important to try to serve and how we're going to serve the rest of this TID as part of this project. Water would come up the same way and circle their building. Let's just step back before I look at the rest of the TID and talk about water at their facility. Early on, it was asked, well, would they need their own well? And no, they are making a full connection to the village's water system. It will come out, they will connect to it, and they will loop around their entire site. Their entire site will have hydrants spaced at, we're recommending around 400 feet. They're very close to that. There's a couple little hydrants that they'd have to remove. The hydrants are set away, a little further away from their building so they can be accessed by emergency services all the way around their facility. They do have access all the way around their facility for emergency services from different directions at the front, the back, and the sides of the building. We also looked at their interior fire protection plan, and it was quite intensive. They use this plan throughout their facilities across the nation. And what it does is it's kind of a two safety type system. They take all of the village's water and they have that available with our excess capacity at our hydrants and they're at our reservoirs. They look at our wells. We work with them to look at what kind of fire capacity we would have, and we have ample service to provide them with fire service if all of their sprinklers or their system had to be activated at their facility. As a redundancy, they take it one step further. They put their own reservoir on site. They fill it with water from the village, and so it's filled, day one as part of that on site, and they have a second system and a second pump and a second backup generator in case of power failure for that system, that if the village's system went down, they could then have enough water to provide the second system on their own. So it's kind of like a double safety net. We haven't seen something quite of this extensive before, and it does a few things, right? It protects their facility. It definitely protects their employees. They had a very robust system as far as protection for the employees, and then an evacuation plan for their employees in this facility, and it protects all of their product that they may have housed at the facility. So, we reviewed that with them early on as part of the process. Like Aaron mentioned, the fire department was involved in the process, and that also has to be sent to the state when they approve the building plans as part of their fire protection plan for state approval. So looking a little bit more at the sewer and water, how are we going to serve and access, how are we going to serve the rest of the sites that surround this TID 10? And what I did is, in part of the plan commission is they said, we'd like to see this a little bit more in kind of a thought process of what we've been talking about with other development that's taking place and with the project site X, the Project Silver Eagle site here today. Sometimes I call it Project X, and that's what I've got in my mind early on as part of the project, so I apologize for that. But so as you see the sewer and water as it comes up here and the connection in, and then you can see this red kind of lined area. This red lined area is like proposed right away for roadway. We've gotten some plans as Mike Calkins came on and a few different development team, Viking came on. Deacon and Houston's came on to talk a little bit about development of this parcel. We've been talking to them, working with them a little bit, understanding what they were really going to do over here. And they kind of want the circulation road and how they're going to develop this. They definitely want an access back to the north, which we agree. It could come back and connect over to the Township Road kind of area here to the north on Highway N. It's about the same distance from the high point here as to the access point for the Project Silver Eagle site. It's about the same distance south over that hump to the other side. And what we're showing here is we're showing kind of a potential water. So it's just dashed in blue. Water could be looped around and then brought back down end so that all that could be looped together. And then just potential gravity sewer. This gravity sewer could come up and serve a majority of this site by gravity without a lift station. And then the remaining parts of the north and all of this northern parcels would have to drain by gravity and dashed green back here to what would be a regional lift station. This could be set deep enough to cover some of the other development that could take place to the north. And then pump back to the gravity system here into this parcel along the roadway right away shown in red. Then it could all travel by gravity back and across the interchange back into the other village system. This site to the east would likely have an access at the same point that the Project Silver Eagle site has, and in red here, and sewer and water would come off of this same location and travel back to the roundabout down here along County Trunk T. Now, there's been talk about other access or a second access to this site, and it could happen. I think, in a different manner along Elvin Road. We know there's a little bit of right of way potentially here for something there. If it couldn't be a full access, it could definitely be an emergency service access. Mike Calkins talked about ordinances and some variances, and maybe an emergency service access helps some of that. They've proposed some accesses through this site, and here it's tough with a retaining wall and a sound wall and what the Project Silver Eagle is trying to do as far as noise and separation from some of the other residential parcels here. There's also that big grader change that almost all this would have to happen at the same time to make sure that the coordination in access here would be viable. And then there was also some access thought along the northern end here. But part of that is they're trying, you need that access to connect back to this truck access, which is really hard because as you heard Morgan talk about before, truck and vehicle separation is very important for safety with the amount of trucks coming through here and into this site. We would suggest that you probably don't try to intermix vehicle access for the rest of this development with that truck access. The idea is to get them off the interstate and into the site and away from other vehicles in a very efficient manner. So we would suggest not mixing them with traffic here, instead taking them to the north, at least the way things are planned now throughout the rest of this TID10. We're still kind of talking about that as plans and some of these final engineering comes to fruition. So real briefly, stormwater I think was covered fairly well by Adam. The different watershed areas that we have here, the red and the pink is draining from what is part of the town of Cottage Grove into this site. They're picking that up. It's important to note that there's a little bit to the north that's heading north that will also now be picked up all as part of the site. It all travels across this large box culvert here, 36 by 60. There's no change in that plan. Everything that's generated on site will be captured on site, retained on site, and then released at a rate that is just like the farm fields are today. That's the requirements of the county and of the state. I wanted to just briefly show, Adam didn't show it, but he talked about the 3 ponds. They're on the same location of where kind of that water travels through the site today. It kind of travels along this side and then goes through the culvert. So the ponds are kind of in that same area. They are all interconnected. So as one pond is drained here and the other is drained to this pond and the rest of this facility is drained to the third, but they're all connected to each other. So as they overflow, they overflow into each other, and they still overflow and out drain into the lands to the east. When I say overflow, they are designed for the 1, 2, 10, 50, 100-year, and 200-year storm, which is a new requirement, the 200-year storm for Dane County. It used to only be the 100-year storm. And these 3 ponds are clay lined. And what he meant by that is They're clay lined, so you don't get any infiltration in at this point. They want to hold water. They always have water in them. When there's a small storm event, the water collects in them. The sediment, the total suspended solids that is in that water settle out into the pond. That's where you'll have also your nitrogen and your phosphorus and things that contaminate your wells. Your oils and grease are picked up in the green areas prior to that. They all settle out into the ponds, and then the water continues itself through the ponds and into the infiltration basin. That infiltration basin is typically dry, and then it fills up during small rain events, and it basically drains the water back into the groundwater so that we can get the water back into the groundwater as it's meant to be. And then during large events, it does overflow and overtop back and across into this facility as it did in the past across Highway N. So really the drainage pattern has not changed, and the requirements and compliance are being met with both village, county, and state requirements. As mentioned before, I think Aaron mentioned it, the town of Cottage, Sun Prairie is having Dane County also look at it, and Dane County, again, several different agencies in Dane County and the DNR will have to look at the stormwater report as it is finalized before they will give certain permits for construction on the site. So with that wraps up the stuff that I wanted to cover besides lighting and noise, and we're still waiting. We did receive the photometrics on the lighting side, and Morgan, we haven't got to them yet. I know we were sending them off late last week, so we will review those. We've been talking about dark sky compliance. And then on the noise side, as Aaron mentioned, we'll also help review what we can on that side as far as the noise walls and what they block on the site. That's all I have, John.
All right, thanks, Josh. All right, with that then, any questions from board members or Morgan, Adam, Jason, or staff at this point?
This is Sarah. I've got some, and I'm not on the plan commission, so I'm sorry I might have more than others because I've been collecting some of my questions. So my first one is around traffic, and so this might be answered by a number of folks. I was able to talk with the mayor of another village that has an Amazon distribution center, and they talked about the truck queuing being an issue, and I would like you to address, if you could, how many trucks can queue in that driveway, and how many trucks would you anticipate needing to queue at one time? In hopes, obviously, that they wouldn't be queuing on Highway N. Could you talk about that at all?
Yeah, I'll start it off and then pass it to Adam. So Sarah, that's a really great question. And I'm going to pull up the site plan really quickly. One of the reasons in large part, oh, excuse me. Oh, sorry. For some reason, it doesn't like bouncing back and forth. But so in large part, because of the distance that we have created, really because of that conservation easement creates kind of a horizontal standpoint that allows for significant truck queuing that I think is above and beyond even what those typical requirements are from a design standpoint. I believe it's about 15 trucks can queue on site. Adam, do you mind jumping in and clarifying for me?
It's actually 22 with a factor of safety. We could fit 24 on there, but that would kind of block the driveway. So realistically speaking, the way we look at setting this up for is 10. The idea of having a factor of safety of 2 is exactly that, a factor of safety.
Thank you. That's helpful. And then can you talk, I know you are saying 100% of the traffic will go on the interstate, but how are you going to kind of make sure that is the case? And I know, there's talk, well, they wouldn't want to go through town, those kinds of things, but I'm just trying to understand, how can we make sure you can ensure that? Because that is a big worry.
Yeah, of course, Sarah. And I would say maybe one really important clarification is passenger vehicle traffic, depending on where those jobs are coming from, will be coming north and south. So I just want to highlight that.
Yes, thank you.
Of course, from a truck perspective, based off of all of our modeling and the destination and arrival points, we would anticipate 100% of that traffic to go directly from I-94. I think one of the important call outs is from an operation standpoint, starting and stopping is actually the biggest issue with these types of trucks. So going down any of these county roads that require stoplights or stop signs or slowing down is actually a huge operational issue. So in large part, that is why we've strategically located with direct access to 94. I think that's just from an operational standpoint, the most important highlight. We do not anticipate any traffic to go north or south of the freeway, north of our site or south of the freeway. I don't know, Adam, if there's anything else you would like to add from a traffic flow perspective.
Yeah, the only other thing I would just add to supplement that is just, again, the type of facility this is. This is a distribution model. The product is coming and going from known facilities. This isn't going to deliver to a house or going to deliver anywhere else. So the interstate is really the mechanism that gets product from point A to point B and vice versa.
Okay, thank you. And so then in follow-up to that, I think I might have heard it, I don't remember at which meeting, but maybe that the county is putting in a condition that they be able to, or we be able to do an additional traffic study even after the facility is built, just in case things aren't flowing the way we thought. Or I might stop there and have somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Can you, anybody speak to that condition?
I'm not sure 100% if they said they wanted one after, Sarah. We have several requirements that they're going to still kind of model. So some of it was the 10-year. So they wanted to look out 10 years. So they wanted to, just like they were making assumptions before on growth and surrounding growth, what will happen is they'll look out an additional 10 years at, let's say, 1% to 2% traffic growth per year. So the surrounding traffic coming from all directions will grow at a certain amount of vehicles each year for a 10-year period. Model that 10-year pass. So model a hypothetical 2033 instead of just the 2023 when they open. So it adds additional traffic to the system, not necessarily directly from them, but all the surrounding growth that you may have just from development that's happening south, north, east, and west of the site. And see how that kind of functions, Sarah, with these intersections to see if there's, you know, a change that needs to happen one way or the other.
Okay. Do you think that that is something that we could have kind of that if the traffic ends up to be different from what the estimates are, say in the first few years of the project, I don't know, but that we could do another traffic study or an assessment?
Sarah, I can jump in. So we could, you know, put that in the developer agreement, or, you know, it could theoretically be a condition of the approval, like in 5 or 10 years, conduct another traffic study.
Okay, thanks, Rick. And I think, you know, I also hoping that in the developer agreement, we could have something that refers to the community partnership that Jason from Amazon referred to. I know that we would really enjoy having Amazon as a community partner for some of our projects and community celebrations. And so hopefully we can figure out what that would look like. And then it sounds like, just kind of want to confirm, I saw we've got a number of conditions. I think I counted 18 of them. I think you guys addressed the noise issues. And looking at that, I think you've addressed the utilities, the stormwater seems to be addressed, the fire issues the chief has been involved with. So thank you. It sounds like you have heard the concerns and have presented us with some information that was very informative. Thank you.
I'll go next, Jim.
Right.
Can someone clarify or refute the statement made during public commentary about the stormwater design and the engineer who submitted the design?
Yeah, I would love to address it. The summary memo that contained literally tables digesting computer modeling and all that was by a younger person in our firm here. We have about 16 people working on this, and it is 100% guaranteed to be prepared under my direction. I did the modeling, I did that. Somebody wrote a memo, and that's it. I bear every certification to stamp plans in Wisconsin, and I go well above that with, being official drainage engineer as well.
Thanks, Adam. Next question, maybe this is directed at Morgan. Can we talk about the needs and the wants for you around local contractors, or can you comment on the contractors, preferably members of the trades, when you do begin building? Can you give us any color on that?
Yes, of course. I'll start and then I'll toss it to Jason, both Jason Fields and Jason Banglis on the client team. So we have not selected a general contractor for this project yet because we are very early in the process. But a really important part of that selection process is we have very stringent diversity and inclusion criteria that we require all GCs that are bidding to abide by and include in their proposals. That includes partnership with local organizations to make sure that we are really thinking strategically about who those subcontractors are. We partnered really early in the process with Jason Fields and the MadRep team in order to start getting access and connection to who those subcontractors might be, and setting up platforms to make it as easy as possible for them to be aware of the project once we go out to bid. It's a really important part of this type of development, is making sure we are partnering with the local community. I would say the one call out is that's very much the construction of the facility, and as mentioned, we haven't begun that process yet. Jason, anything, Jason Banglis, anything, or Jason Fields, anything you guys would like to add?
Sure, Morgan, I'll just expand just a little bit. We, as part of that process, also partnered with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation in concert with the Department of Administration that maintains a list of subcontractors and licensed individuals throughout the state of Wisconsin. And so we were able to connect with that resource. And as Morgan mentioned, we don't have a GC yet attached to this project who will lead that effort, but there certainly is an initiative within Amazon to focus on those DEI efforts, in particular with minority-owned and women-owned businesses, to give those opportunities to scale and leverage up.
And Jason Fields, I don't know if you're still on the line or anything to add. Oh shoot, we might have lost him.
No worries. Two more questions for me. Jason from Amazon, could you address the employee turnover rate at Amazon? It's I've had a lot of residents reach out to me. Obviously, we as a village, we want you to provide livable wages. It's very public that Amazon, provides $15 an hour. I was at the Plan Commission. You did comment on that today. But could you make some comments, or at least a word or two, about the turnover rate? Again, because a lot of residents have reached out to me and asked me.
Sure. I mentioned, briefly a leadership principle that we added within this last year. About 2 years prior to that, Amazon added another leadership principle that is a pretty lofty goal, which is to be Earth's best employer. And so we have a commitment to frame our benefits, and I think that's where you see the paid parental leave comes out of. In 2018, we made the commitment to have the $15 minimum wage. Our benefits on day one, the professional development, all of that is an effort to create a working environment that supports growth and development and the retention that we want. I think, beyond that, you see this within the last year, we added about 500,000 new jobs. And so Amazon continues to remain competitive in the job market. And so while we see certainly news stories about that, at the end of the day, the narrative is that Amazon is a competitive employer, and we see that in markets that we develop in.
Okay. And I think that's it for me, actually. So thank you.
All right. Other questions from board members?
I have a few, John.
All right, Heidi.
Thanks. Morgan, there were a couple of changes that I noticed since the last meeting, and there are a couple of things highlighted specifically. So the dark sky lighting, additional sound mitigation and sound walls, and additional screening. Would you say more or less that those were kind of added as a result of listening to the neighbors and some of their concerns and how we might mitigate those?
Yes, Heidi, that's a great call out. Those were as a result of our feedback from the neighborhood sessions. I would say one to add too is while we have a landscaping plan, as mentioned, if there's for example, we heard feedback that specific trees might have bark that might diffract noise better. We're open for any dialogue around that. So I would say those are kind of the key items that we've incorporated into our existing design.
Great, thank you. And thank you for incorporating those based on the feedback from our surrounding community. I also wanted to point out the multimodal transportation that we talked about before, because I do think that's an important element. So I was excited to see that. And then again, the landscaping. I had sent Aaron some information about plantings for the rusty-patched bumblebee, which is an endangered species in our area. And some of the plants that you had listed were in there among the nearly 700 trees and over 1,600 shrubs and ornamental grasses in the plan. So I was reviewing the landscaping plan, and I think it's substantial to note just the large amounts of prairie and no-mow turf in the area, especially considering what could be built as an alternative, where 60% or so is generally built up in an industrial park. I had another addition. This is more for maintenance in the future. We have a program called Saltwise in Wisconsin to reduce the usage of salt, and with such large parking lots that maybe the contractor used in the future would consider Saltwise in their snow removal process. And I think the other trustees covered my other questions. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Heidi. Other questions from trustees?
I do have one more that I found in my notes. The other concern that the other community had shared with me was just that some of the truck drivers, I know they're private contractors, but are kind of parking outside of the facility on different roads and using that space to sleep maybe before they go out on their routes or when they're coming in from their routes. I don't know what kind of structure you can put in place for that. I don't know that there is anything. I just was wondering if you could comment on that.
Sure, I can take that one, Sarah. I think that this comes down to partnership. So what I would say is, I'm your point of contact. So if those issues do come up, we certainly instruct and ask our partners, to comply with those local ordinances. And so to the best that we can, we certainly enforce that, but we can't catch everything. So if there are residents in those that have concerns related to that, feel free to pass it along to Cottage Grove Police Department, and they can pass it along to me.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful to know. I didn't know that you'd be continuing in this project even once it's built. So you'll be our contact person, Jason.
Absolutely. There will be a site leader. I won't be the site leader, but there will be, but I'll be your point of contact for all things government related.
Thank you.
Jason, just a quick question, or allow you to elaborate a little bit. Amazon does have some sustainability goals. The Village of Cottage Grove has their own sustainability goals. I'm wondering if you could just kind of highlight some of those for the board and the public, because there are some that are pretty aggressive, I know.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. Sure. So currently Amazon stands at about 65% of its operations uses renewable energy. We're on pace to be 100% by 2025 for our global operations. The goal is to be net carbon neutral by 2040, which is 10 years ahead of the Paris Accord. And by the year 2030, we'll have over 100,000 Rivian electric vans on the road. That project has already started. This particular facility has 2 EV charging stations at launch, but has capacity for up to 8. And we're currently overhauling our delivery, not this particular location, but across the country, our delivery station network to have those EV chargers as part of it.
And then just to follow up on that, any goals around the semi trucks? Obviously, that would go into the carbon by 2040. Just curious.
We do have a non-idling policy that helps with that. I don't have great data on partnerships with our 3PLs or third-party logistics companies, but certainly can follow up with that, John, and get that back to you.
All right, thank you. Other questions from board members? Or comments? Otherwise, this is a discuss and consider.
I'll make a motion to approve the application from TC Pursuit Services for approval on a precise information plan to construct a 5-story warehouse and distribution facility on approximately 145 acres located northwest of Highway N and TT, parcels 0811332900110. Next one is 0811-333-8075-1. Next parcel is 0811-332-9501-1. Next parcel is 0811-332-8732-1 and parcel 0811-332-9791-1 with staff recommendations.
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Troy. Thanks, Paul. Just to clarify, the second to last parcel is 9782-1. Just to make sure that that's correct. And both Troy and Paul, you're good with that?
Yeah, it's a lot of numbers, John.
And Troy, is that with staff conditions outlined in Aaron and Josh's reports?
Yes. Yep.
Paul, second?
Yep.
All right. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. The next thing that the plan commission went through, and again, thanks to the presenters on the prior one, first of all, thanks for the presenters and certainly the public's comments. Appreciate it as far as this particular TC Pursuant Services development in Amazon. But we'll move on to the other item then that was a discuss and consider at Plan Commission. And the only other item really covered. This was to discuss and consider an application for Infinity Martial Arts for the approval of conditional use permit to conduct indoor commercial entertainment land use, in this case, martial arts studio at an existing building located on 321 Progress Drive. Aaron, I don't know if the applicant is here tonight, but
I spoke with Justin, the owner of Infinity that I've been working with on this. They teach in the evenings. They teach classes every night. So he said he could have been available, but I didn't know when exactly we'd get to him. And this is a fairly straightforward application, I think. It's an existing building, currently Uselman Plumbing. Infinity would be using the space for martial arts classes. They are currently located on BB, so this would be a different facility for them. That's a land use that's considered a conditional use in a planned industrial district, so this isn't unlike jump around gymnastics or the Dolphin Swim Academy up in the Commerce Park that are also zone planned industrial. We had no concerns about approving that other than one condition that we would like to see the parking lot striped properly. Currently it is not. People coming and going and dropping off kids, we just want to make sure that's all well delineated, and Justin agreed with that.
all right. Thanks, Aaron. Any question from board members?
I'll motion to approve the application from Infinity Martial Arts for approval of conditional use permit to conduct an indoor commercial entertainment land use martial arts studio in an existing building located at 321 Progress Drive.
Second.
All right, thanks, Paul, and thanks, David. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Moving then next to the Ad hoc Sustainability Committee. Heidi.
Thanks, John. We met on the 8th and we discussed the progress on the goals we set on our resolution regarding sustainability a few years ago to see how we're doing and what we can do in the coming years, what we need to speed up on to meet those goals. We also discussed the Earth Day event that we're planning on April 23rd. We have rain barrels ready for pre-order. You can order those through our website. It links you to our vendor. And the pickup day will be April 23rd. And we'll also have more information coming soon on compost bins that will be available. They'll be around for that date also. We just have to get the final pricing from the vendor on those. The Dane County Trash Lab will also be appearing that day, and we're working on coordinating with the Friends of the Library because they're hosting an Earth Day event that same day. We also added the committee consolidation discussion to the March 8th meeting under future agenda items. So we'll be talking with the committee a little more about what that will look like as we merge with Public Works. And that's all I have, unless you have something else to add, John.
Nope, I think you covered it. All right, since we have you there, Utility Commission.
Yep, we met the next day on the 9th. We discussed this year's street projects as they relate to utilities. We also discussed the water and sewer utility budgets, and I guess the main highlights within those include a system-wide evaluation with Strand to update the CIPs, and also an impact fee study to realign the impact fees for our projects so we can plan ahead to complete those. We also updated the equipment fund to save for sewer utility specific equipment. So considering those items, we'll see an 11% increase in rate on the sewer side, I believe. JJ, correct me if I'm wrong, but no increase on the water side. So it's a smaller, I guess, relative increase since it's just one side of it this year. And those will be reflected in the Q1 bills. JJ, did you have anything to add on that?
Nope, you got it all.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks, Heidi. Moving then to Community Development Authority, David or Sarah?
Yeah, so we met and Distillery went over the budget again, and we looked at some different breakouts, possibly look at the website and different ways that they might be able to use our existing platform, and also create maybe more of a destination website versus the governmental, very specific website. So looking into what that will look like. That was about it, I think. David, Aaron, anything critical I missed?
Only thing I would add is originally Distillery was proposing a completely second website in addition to the village website. And we kind of steered back towards just having one website instead of competing websites. It's been relayed to me a lot lately that the website could use some help in terms of making things more easy to find. So that is kind of the path we went down. So the Distillery will be doing some more research and will be getting back to us at the next meeting about that. So. Aaron, anything I'm left out?
Between the two of you, you've got it.
The only question or comment I'd have is just on the website and consideration there, or is to kind of look out, maybe the CDA to reach out to the tourism committee to kind of ensure that, again, we get a few more heads there to help think about, how you might want to do this and take that approach with the Distillery folks. Because I think they could also probably lend another view of that as well.
Yep. I staff both of those, so that's.
I know. Aaron wearing both hats. I like it. Any questions there? Well, then we will move on to library board. Melissa, please.
Thank you, John. We discussed information to put on our website, on the village website, I guess our webpage on the village website. That includes the mission vision statement and the library board bylaws. We discussed the civil engineering course educational opportunity where UW has one of their engineering classes basically design a library, like three separate libraries for the site that is just part of their class. It's purely educational. We don't have to use it at all, but it helps us as well, just to learn about the process type of thing. And it helps their students to gain their diploma or their degree in that. So it's a fun opportunity, and it has local roots in that the professor is from the area as well. And so that's how he heard about this opportunity. The RFP progress update. I'm not sure of exactly how many we have back right now, but it was a good response from what I understand. And we'll be discussing those for the financial feasibility study at our next meeting in March. And lastly, discuss ongoing resident data collection. A lot of the information that was attached to the agenda, I think will be going on the webpage as well. And with the Friends of the Cottage Grove Library report, it went along with Heidi's report on the Sustainability Committee, where the Friends are working with our committee for Earth Day with the Trash Lab coming and having the event, as she noted, on April 23rd at Cottage Grove School. And some other fun opportunities with programming with the Friends. Our next meeting is March 16th. JJ, did I miss anything?
Nope, you got it all.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Melissa. Moving then to Deer Grove EMS Commission, that would be Sarah Troy.
We met last Thursday, the 17th. Calls are up 27 calls this year versus last year. Village of Cottage Grove was 41 last year versus 50 this year. The chassis for the new ambulance has been produced and is on its way to Demler's for the body. We did pass a resolution to transfer funds so that we can actually pay for the ambulance. We did no action on recommendations from PAA. We're waiting to see what the audit looks like before we do that. And then we changed casual for retention, or I'm sorry, for retention of casual employees, which used to be LTEs. We raised the hourly rate and allowed them to become eligible for the Wisconsin retirement system after 1,200 hours, which is 24 hours a week of service. Chief's going to come back to us next meeting with some goals to review. And our next meeting is on March 17th. Did I miss anything at all, Chief or Sarah?
I have two refinements to add. First being, our chassis has rolled off the assembly line minus some very important parts. Therefore, it is in storage at the production facility, I believe in Mexico. And as soon as supply chain catches up with some computer chips and such, it will be on its way to Canada. We hope that soon. It did roll off the assembly line as it was supposed to, but just didn't ship as we were told. Steps forward, I guess. The other refinement would be the resolution for the capital purchase will be at the next meeting for the village board to approve. because it's going into the capital fund and then being removed. It's not only needs to be approved by at the commission, EMS commission level, but also to the village board. I had sent it, but neglected to send it to Sarah. So it'll be on the next agenda for you guys to approve.
So Chief, the new ambulance is going to be international already?
The new ambulance started off international the minute it was produced, but yeah. It's a stop for a siesta, I guess is the best way to put it.
All right. With that, then we'll move to reports from village officers. Anything from you, Rick? I'm sorry.
So what?
Yep. Go ahead.
So one thing that we wanted to flag, obviously with the mask mandate coming to an end in Dane County, we've obviously been holding all the meetings virtually for some time, but I think we wanted to bring forward a discussion for the future, or we can talk a little bit about it now, but final decision making in the future regarding what the policy will be of the village moving forward regarding meetings, whether it'll be in person, hybrid, virtual. Right now, we're sort of operating under some DOJ guidance that's not necessarily a law, but it was issued when the pandemic first started. And their current guidance is, well, you should continue to use these transparency methods of providing things virtually if you can, rather by streaming on YouTube or other options. So we just wanted to sort of start the discussion for the board to start thinking about how it wants to conduct meetings in the future, especially considering what staff will be available to actually provide the virtual options if that's the route the board wants to go. Because I know we have sort of limited staff capacity for that right now. At least I think the current person's only available on Mondays. So we just wanted to flag that discussion for you guys, just so we're moving in the direction of, potentially getting back to in-person. What's that going to look like? And just so you guys are thinking about it. And I know, Matt, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, just a couple comments. Kind of what the feedback that the League of Wisconsin Municipalities has been gathering and hearing on this, as well as just talking to other colleagues. It seems like there's probably going to be, especially in Dane County, since we're under the mask mandate longer than other areas of the state, where much of the state may have been in person, maybe even throughout the pandemic, is that there will likely be an expectation for the governing bodies to err on the side of being in person. And certainly everyone can take into account their own personal choice on masking, and obviously if things were to change and public health or CDC have other measures that come forward, we can reassess that. But that's probably going to be where we're hearing most of the public is going to be expecting of governing bodies. And with that as well, in the handful of hybrid meetings that we did hold, where maybe the board or plan commission was mainly virtual, is that the hybrid meeting will likely only function well if the governing body is in person, and then the people that are virtual are mainly there to view the meeting. That seems to work pretty well. But at least in our brief experience of doing those hybrid meetings, for the people that were in person, it didn't function the way that we would have hoped without board members there. But anyway, as Rick mentioned, we just wanted to get this in front of everyone as the mask mandate comes to a close here in the beginning of March.
Matt, do we have someone available to do the hybrid for at least the board to handle that? I know that individual committees may, and we'll have to talk about this as a board, how we want to handle those, but certainly like plan commission as well as the board, we probably I mean, it's been nice to have a lot of participation from others outside of just the governing body, and so one good thing maybe out of all this, and there aren't many, is that I think we've seen a higher participation at our meetings. So
Yeah.
in thinking about that, can we still function and handle a hybrid meeting when we do move after the first?
Yes, I think our new IT consultants can help us with this. Our cable operator is available on Mondays, so board meetings should be fine. Plan commission, if we're able to, it might just be kind of a not as robust of a hybrid meeting where we just have a fixed camera on the board, and the people that are choosing to attend virtually, it's just not going to be a high production quality meeting. It'll function as a hybrid meeting. They'll be able to hear the proceedings and see the board, but there's going to be no zooming in or moving of the camera. So we have all intentions to continue hybrid meetings, but we just want to make sure that expectations are aligned with at least kind of our current staffing level of that service.
Right, and just obviously we have the hybrid policy now that was adopted by the board, and so we feel that's compliant with the open meetings law. But as Matt said, the sort of expectation is that things will go back to in-person. That's sort of the way that the DOJ has signaled as well. But we have that hybrid policy in our back pocket as well. But even that, it sort of favors in-person as opposed to virtual or hybrid.
All right, any questions from board members?
Yes.
Go ahead, David.
I'm not super clear. It sounded a little bit wishy-washy, right? In terms of we have an ordinance that says we can do hybrid, but then I heard there's an expectation from the DOJ that we should probably, more than likely be in person. So I guess I'm looking for clear direction for myself and other trustees. Like, do we set the expectation for ourselves? Does the DOJ set that expectation? Just help me understand kind of how this should work.
Right. So when the pandemic first came out, DOJ sort of issued this guidance right away saying, yes, you can do virtual as long as the public has access. That's not binding by any means. I mean, they're sort of the enforcement mechanism of the open meetings law. But even now, their recent statements have sort of indicated that the expectation, at least, is to hold things in person. And it was sort of like a circumstantial thing where they were encouraging the virtual option under the circumstances of, being in the throes of the pandemic. But as things wind down, and obviously, as we all know, the situation can change on a week-to-week basis. But that seems to be the indication, is that the in-person is the preferred method.
But if we were to stay hybrid, we're still green, or?
Yeah, so
I'm looking for a definitive, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so like I said, the hybrid policy we have, it encourages in-person. So basically, if you're holding an in-person meeting, the quorum is going to be based on whoever is participating. But if you drop off because of a slow internet connection or your call drops, the in-person people are sort of what controls the quorum of the meeting. So that's sort of how we built it in, is looking towards that in-person as the primary method. And I guess the reason I can't give you a definitive answer on the DOJ is because they haven't really given a definitive answer. They say teleconference has been always allowed under the open meetings law. But again, their indications, at least from their public guidance, has been, you can continue to provide the transparency, but it's sort of implying that, or like the other options of attending or watching the meeting. But the implication is essentially that the open meetings law implies a in-person meeting.
Okay. still not getting there, but I guess what I'm hearing is the ordinance that we, and remind me, there was an ordinance that we passed. It's been some time now, but
Well, it's a policy, a resolution.
a policy. So the policy that we approved sounds like it's allowable, but somewhat of a gray area is what I'm hearing.
I wouldn't say it's a gray area necessarily. I mean, we feel strongly we're in compliance with the open meetings law. Like we wouldn't put something before the board that's questionable. But again, the policy even puts this sort of hierarchy as in person is gonna be the preference.
Okay, I'm getting there. I guess I can always reach out if I really want to get super theoretical here, but I think I catch the gist. Thanks.
Yep.
Other questions for Rick on this or Matt? I guess the positive thing about this is, hopefully getting back a little bit more to normal and we get to see each other face to face again. I think that's encouraging. All right. Anything else, Rick?
No, that's all I got for you guys.
All right. Moving then on to communication and miscellaneous business. First up is to consider approval of vouchers. Any questions, comments on the vouchers as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Troy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Paul. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody oppose? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence. The only thing I think the entire board has seen quite a bit of correspondence in the last week or so from a number of different types of residents, both in the village and outside. And all those are been captured for the public record. So if they've copied all of us, Lisa's filed those away accordingly so that we do have a complete understanding of that input and have it as part of the record. Any other correspondence that anybody else wants to reference?
Yeah, I had something, John. Got a message today from Steve Steinhoff, the director at Kirksey. They're sounds like a couple months away from wrapping up the rewrite of their regional plan, and they're putting a committee together for the implementation of that plan. Looks like it'll have 4 commissioners, and they're looking for 4 local government officials, such as yourselves. So if any of you are interested in volunteering for that, let me know, and I can give you more information, or I'm sure Heidi would be happy to tell you about her adventures at Kirksey too. So.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Anything else from anyone else? All right, then we'll move on to upcoming community events. Anybody have anything that's coming up here in the next month or so?
Cottage Grove Lions is doing a spaghetti dinner on Saturday, March 5th at Flynn Hall between 4 and 7 p.m.
All right. Thanks, Troy. Anyone have anything else? We're
The
just on
Cottage
a
Grove.
cut. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say the Cottage Grove Fire Department is having their corned beef and cabbage lunch on March 12th at 11 a.m.
Always a fun event. And that's at the fire station, as it always is. Yeah. Okay. Super. We're just on the cusp of finally, getting out of the doldrums of winter. So it's nice to hear that community events are starting to pop a little bit more, and more will be coming. Earth Day will be here before we know it. We've got the Parkinson Run coming up too, and then before we know it, we'll be talking about Fireman's Festival and Music in the Grove, which will be very nice. It's tired of the cold. With that, future agenda items. Anybody have anything? Matt, you have anything at the top? or Aaron?
Yes, John, I think we will have the ordinance updates to the committees, commissions, and boards section of our code. That should be ready for the next meeting.
All right, very good. Anything from anyone else? All right, then we'll move right to item 9.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Troy. Thanks, Heidi. Non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Have a good
Thanks,
night,
everybody.
everyone.
Have a great week.
Have a nice night.